Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, Karen loses it because I gave my daughter a stupid name. It's not stupid, it's from my favorite anime. I, 22 female, recently gave birth to my daughter. My husband, who's 27, and I both are huge geeks. We basically met at a cosplay convention. I was cosplaying as my favorite female character from a popular anime, and she turned out to be my future husband's favorite character as well. So we decided to honor her, and the reason we met by naming our daughter after her. Please note that in Western culture, her name is a masculine one and has a slightly different spelling, so we chose to keep the original spelling. We also chose to keep the name a secret until she was born. Important detail, my sister-in-law also has a daughter, Kayleigh, spelled K-A-I-E-L-E-I-G-H. I personally think that it's hilarious and dumb to give your kid a name with spelling like that. But I've never made any comments about it as it's her business after all, and my kid's name is rare and unusually spelled as well. As I delivered my daughter and we were out of the hospital, we finally disclosed her name. Most of our relatives were okay with her name, some of them even said it's beautiful. However, my sister-in-law lost it. She said it's a stupid name, and the decision to name a kid after a fictional villain is idiotic. It was expected, as she often made snarky comments about our hobbies and interests. However, this time I lost it and I yelled at her, saying that it's our decision to name our kid and that it's better than Kayleigh. She started crying, saying that I was unreasonably rude and stormed off. My husband and my mother-in-law took my side and said that I was right and that sister-in-law overstepped the boundary. However, sister-in-law keeps harassing me, demanding an apology, and even managed to turn some of our mutual friends against me. Edit. I've been asked in the comments about my baby's name. It's Conan, after Conan from Naruto. You named a baby girl Conan? Yikes. For your daughter's sake, I hope everyone in your area knows anime and doesn't immediately jump to the Barbarian instead. I was thinking Conan the Barbarian too. Conan the Barbarian. I wish parents would think of their kids before trying to do something unique and sentimental for their own selfish reasons. A kid isn't a dog or a cat. They're a human who has to deal with the repercussions of their name. Poor kid. I wish people would realize that the kid is the one who actually has to live with the name they're given. We get it, you're a nerd. So am I, and I'm proud of it. But your kid is a person. They're not an accessory to advertise your interests. I know someone who named their kid Sirius after Sirius Black from Harry Potter, and the kid hates it because nobody in our country is named that. He refuses to go by it, and the parents are disappointed. You're the jerk for giving your kid a stupid name. She's not a toy or a character from a show. Everyone sucks here. Naming a kid Conan is probably just going to help the bullies. I can hear the variations of the name now. Naming your kid a stupid spelling of a name is just annoying. What the heck is it with people having to make their kids stand out with stupid names? You're the jerk. This is why adults who still watch stupid anime shows should not become parents. You're basically kids yourselves, trapped in adult bodies. Edit. How did I know so many of you would be triggered by this? Oh, that's right, because most of you still watch anime yourselves. Japanese cartoons designed to make profits off of dumb kids, which is exactly what it does and what you are. Man, it's a spicy day on Reddit. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for naming her daughter Conan or not? Please let us know.
Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Ares, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga.
Wow, Karen, you really love Conan the Barbarian, don't you?
Well, there's a reason we have his sword up on the wall in the game room, right next to the Master Sword from Zelda.
Am I the jerk for telling my wife we can adopt her nephews, but not her niece? My wife's sister was recently found guilty of dealing. She will be sentenced this week and is looking toward a long term because this is not her first time caught dealing. She has 3 kids, 2 boys who are 4 and 5 and a girl who's 14. No one on her family side wants to or in a position to take care of the kids except for me and my wife. However, I'm demanding 2 conditions. If we're going to take these kids in, I want us to adopt them. I don't want 50 people looking over our shoulders trying to tell us what to do. If we're going to be legally responsible for them, I want to be able to parent them as we see fit. The second condition is that I'm willing to take the 2 boys in, but not the girl. The two boys have not had any rules their whole lives and are terrors, but they're still young and can be taught right from wrong. The girl has gone past the point of no return. She's been suspended from school several times for things like fighting and smoking on school grounds. She's also stolen from us and other family members. She's dating a gang member who was arrested on a home invasion charge but was released because it was his first time and his age. This is a mess, and we've been arguing about it for an entire week. I don't want to risk our financial and personal security, but my wife argued that we can't just throw her away. At this point, we're not even sleeping in the same bed, but I'm hesitant to open our house up to the girl and her lifestyle. My wife argues that if we don't take her, she'll go into foster care, but I pointed out if we don't take any of them, they'll all go into foster care. Update. I left out a lot of info because I was in shock and I still am. We're both in our late 20s, have been married for a little over 2 years, have no kids, and I just graduated with my advanced degree last year. Last month, we were talking about maybe having kids when we're in our mid-30s and about where we want to go on our Christmas vacation. Last week, my wife came home, sat me down, and told me we're taking in these 3 kids. I know nothing about adoption laws or anything related to raising kids, much less troubled ones. I knew what was going on with her sister, and I was told my wife's parents were going to take the kids in. Apparently, they decided they're too old to take care of 3 kids. Of everyone in her family, we are the most financially secure and have a house, so when everyone backed out, she volunteered without asking me. That was the crux of our argument until I realized that it was happening with or without my agreement. That's when I told her we can take the boys in, but not the girl, which started another round of arguments. I've never raised any kids, so I know I can't deal with the baggage that the girl will bring into our lives. I can't begin to tell you all of how shocking this whole thing is. Sometimes I feel like I'm outside, watching my life spin out of control. I want to thank you for all of your insights, and especially those of you who work in the system. Your advice is extremely helpful. As a social worker, cautious, no jerks here. But you need to tread carefully because your demands may not line up with reality. 4 and 5-year-olds raised in a chaotic environment will absolutely have some behavioral problems, which you are relating to running wild. That may not be an easy fix. They will need extensive therapy. Whether you adopt them or not will not be up to you. You can ask it, but you won't be able to demand it or expect it. It will be the choice of a judge, based on how much or little the parents comply with the requirements and how long the prison term is, etc. I would expect that you will be fostering the kids for a minimum of 12 months before you're allowed to start adoption procedures, depending on where you live. And yes, the courts and social workers will be on your back during that time, and 6 months after the adoption takes place. You need to think about that as a reality before committing to these kids. Signing adoption papers as soon as they come to your home will not be an option, unless both parents agree. Clear it with a judge, lawyers, psych evils, etc. It just won't happen that way. Where I disagree with most Redditors, though, is about taking in the 14-year-old being inappropriate. If you do not feel like you can care for her, you shouldn't. But that shouldn't stop you from being a resource for the 2 kids that you're capable of protecting. I've been a long-term foster parent for kids of friends and family, and I've done short-term foster care for kids in my office, anywhere from newborn to 17. Someone her age with gang affiliation, substance use, major issues, and behavioral concerns is not something most people with good intentions are equipped for. You can't just love and therapy all of those issues away. This kid sounds like she needs a higher level of care than you're equipped for. So you aren't wrong for recognizing that, and you can't give her what she needs. She needs an experienced parent with informed skills and a ton of one-on-one attention. You aren't a jerk for having this boundary and understanding your limitations, and any social worker would tell you that. But do be prepared that taking the boys will not be as easy as you imagine, and you will not be able to demand adoption. If you take them, it will be a trial run, heavily supervised, and maybe adoption happens later. Reconsider your plans based on that knowledge and decide if you're still willing. And call your social worker. You may not be interested at all once you see what the plan will look like. Not the jerk. Lots of people writing novels on this post, but I'll keep it short and sweet. Only a fool would take those kids in to make his wife happy. You take those kids in and you can kiss your happiness goodbye. If wife fights you on this, divorce her. None of those kids are going to add to your life. This isn't some stupid Disney movie starring The Rock. This is real life, and real life sucks. The system is the only place for those kids, unless some desperate, lonely relatives are willing to throw away their lives by taking them in. Don't let these commenters' insults get you down. They are all very inexperienced in life and highly unintelligent. So, you only want the ones you feel you can mold into what you want? and want to adopt them not because you think they will benefit from it, but because you want to make sure you and only you are in control of them. Never mind their mother may only serve a handful of years, and you think that gives you the right to legally take her of her rights and snatch her kids away so that you can dangle them in her face to show how great you are? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know. That last commenter may have been pretty blunt and opinionated, but you can't tell me this doesn't sound like the start of a movie, and it would probably be a real tearjerker too. Oh yeah, but like the dude said, real life is never like the movies. Yeah, especially when you're posting on Reddit. Am I the jerk for telling my wife no? My wife, 35 female, and I, 38 male. We've been married for 12 years, dated for 3 before that. We have 3 kids who are 10, 7, and 5. We both work full-time in separate fields. She does some chemistry thing that I don't understand, and I'm a manager at a computer repair store my friend runs, and also a short story writer when it's slow. She's definitely the breadwinner and bill payer between the two of us, but I bring in the fun money for our family and would be completely listless if I didn't at least work part-time. We also fully own our own home because of her job. Also, my parents watch the kids for us during the week when we're working. It's been this way since our son was born, and they've been doing it less since they're all in school. But it's free childcare. They refuse to accept money unless it's reimbursement for buying food. Okay, now that all the backstory's said, here's where the problem begins. A couple of months ago, my wife started talking about a possible promotion coming up that would get her out of the lab and into a more manage the lab team position, with less dangerous hours for more pay. Ever since the first time that she mentioned it, I've been hyping her up and telling her she's a shoo-in for the promotion, especially since she's been working there since her master's internship, and now she has a PhD. Last night, she told me she was getting word today if she got it. After she left for work this morning, I called my boss up and told him I couldn't come in today, and then told my parents the kids were staying with me. We spent the day cleaning the house, drawing congratulations cards, and making a congratulations banner. We also made a couple cards that say, "Sorry and we love you," for if she didn't get it. I was working on making her favorite dinner, lobster rolls with lobster bisque. She's a fancy lady. When she got home earlier than normal. Everyone was surprised because no one is usually home at this time, and yet here everyone was. She had tears in her eyes seeing everything we were still working on, got down and hugged our 2 youngest, and said she got the promotion, cheering all around, and that's when she dropped the bomb, saying we need to get a realtor in a state that's 3 states away from us so we can relocate within the next 2 months. I was stunned and just said no, we aren't moving for this promotion. In all of her talks, she never mentioned that the promotion wasn't for the same location she's been at. All of our family is here, her parents and mine. All our friends are here, my job is here. She insisted that she's mentioned relocating before, but I swear she never did. That set a completely new argument about never listening to her and only hearing what I want to hear, and how this will make it so I can stay home with the kids and not even need a fun money job. During this, I noticed she was typing on her phone, and when I asked why she was multitasking an argument, she said she was texting my parents to get the kids so they don't have to see this. When my parents got here, they congratulated her on the promotion and asked how long until we move. She told my parents the promotion included relocation. I'm typing this on the couch in the basement because I can't face her right now. My parents knowing means she probably did say we would need to move if she got it. I don't want to move. I like my job and our house. I know this would practically set us for life, but I don't want to. I know I'm being selfish, and I know I must not be listening when she talks, but I still don't think she should accept the promotion. I still think no. Info. I've been tested for ADD as a kid, but did not get diagnosed, though I guess that would be something that can change as I age. I probably should get tested for ADHD, considering she's told me her exact job many times and it refuses to stick to my brain. It's something to do with the environmental testing, like soil, water, something like that. It's definitely not incredibly dangerous, but it involves chemicals, so there's always some danger. Info. There were many conversations in general about her possible promotion, mostly about upgrading cars and electronics. It was never really anything detailed beyond that. I don't actually know why my parents never mentioned it. I should probably ask them at some point. Our kids do have friends in school, though in these few weeks they never really talked about anything with me. It was like everyone was walking on eggshells where I was concerned. My son did say we needed a school with a good soccer team though, so he had some opinions after the argument. When my parents got the kids, she stormed up to our room and I went and hid in the basement. I was definitely being a coward, but I also wanted us both to calm down. I did feel silly asking Tumblr about this, but I've been here since 2010. I was falling back on a previous safe haven. That next conversation did not happen. The next morning, she was acting like I was perfectly fine with everything, and we weren't arguing in the first place. It was weird, but after the argument in front of our kids and venting here, I had decided that I would support my wife. If my parents knew we were moving, I was clearly in the wrong. Update. This is, of course, when things started breaking down. Buckle up, this is going to get stupid. And if you think this sounds like a bad story, try living it. Within days of the announcement, we had a realtor looking at houses for us near what will be her new office. She was planning on being the one to do a final walkthrough after we picked a house via photos, so she could multitask and get acclimated at her new job location. It was her suggestion, and I did not want to rock the boat any further. Conversations between us were only about logistics at this point. How would we handle moving? When was my last day? Where were the kids getting transferred to, etc.? It was very stilted, and anytime I would try to just talk normally, she would ignore me. The next time I had work, one of her coworkers came in with her kid's busted laptop. The screen took some kind of sports ball to the face, basically. As I was filling out the intake form, she asked me how our kids were handling the transfer. When I asked her what she meant, she clarified that she was talking about the transfer request my wife put in. To the office she said the promotion transferred her to. I told her that my wife didn't put in a transfer request, but instead was given a promotion with a transfer. She then told me my wife had that promotion since January and recently put in a transfer request that was approved. The promotion that included a hefty pay raise. When she left, I checked our bank account on my phone and saw that the same amount she's always been paid was what she was still getting. I believed the coworker must have been mistaken, but when I went home, I spoke to my wife about it. She told me her coworker was just jealous that she had been passed over for the promotion and wanted to add to the drama in our house. That seemed to break the ice a bit, and I was able to apologize to her for the misunderstanding and the argument. She told me she accepted the apology and that she assumed it was coming because of how helpful and attentive I had been. According to her, I was paying more attention than normal, and she appreciated it. She must have spoken with the coworker about this at some point, because when she came to pick up the laptop a few days later, she refused to speak with me past "hello" and "here's the bill," and was glaring the entire time. After that conversation, things seemed to settle. I wasn't happy about the relocation, but I didn't want our family to break apart, all because I wasn't paying as much attention as I should. This new attitude was the final nail. We had started organizing things, throwing away and donating things we didn't remember even having, etc., to prepare for the move. While I was going through a closet she normally hides the kids' Christmas presents in, I found a few old laptops. She claimed that she hides everyone's presents in that closet and that I found her birthday present for me, just some things to tinker with while we settle. Not totally weird, but it was a little weird. She probably knows about as much about my work as I do about hers. I also found a few books that belonged to her mother. I figured that I could start to mend that bridge. Her parents never liked me, and bring them the books. I did not tell my wife about this, but considering the level of dust on them, I'm sure she forgot they were there. Her parents live a few hours away from us, not even slightly as close as my parents, but they would still be states away after the move. I drove the entire way, no meeting halfway or anything. It was an awkward meeting, but her mom did appreciate me bringing the books to them. Apparently, she thought she had lost them. We did some stilted small talk over a late lunch, and I asked how they felt about my wife's promotion and move. They seemed a little confused, and stuff was slowly unraveled. According to her mother, she mentioned the promotion in January when she got it. She had mentioned to her dad that we were saving the extra money, just in case, because of a business venture my boss and I were planning. According to her, we were going to try opening a location in the city we were moving to, and I would be leading it. Her parents said they knew I'd had some failed investments and plans in the past, so they were honestly not hopeful that this would go well, but they were glad she was able to transfer with her promotion to the other office. Guys, I had no idea what they were talking about, investments or plans. I had done the same job since college, and I've never invested money a day in my life. I said as much, and then also told them I was going home to talk to my wife. I don't really know how they reacted. I was basically in tunnel vision. Probably shouldn't have been driving. So much ran through my head during that drive home, and I was ready to confront her about everything. I guess her parents called while I was driving back, and it tripped her up enough that she just told me everything. She was cheating on me, had been for years. Once she got the promotion in January, she set up a second bank account and had them split the check between the two. Her boyfriend in the city we were moving to had access to the new account. He already owned a house, but he used some of the money to fix it up a bit and was just waiting for us to come. I guess to sweep her off her poor feet after my business venture failed. She didn't tell me about relocating on purpose. She's been lying to her parents about me for years, and she's been lying to my parents and my kids. She also told a coworker that started this thread that I never listened to her, and the misunderstanding was just another instance. She told me she never thought so many things would come undone at once. She's still planning on moving. Me and the kids aren't. Hashtag divorce is expensive. She was playing the long game with all that gaslighting and manipulation. Wow, disgusting human being. So it looks like OP is going to be the primary parent. He keeps the house, and his wife is the breadwinner. Hope she has fun with alimony and child support. If the relationship between her and affair partner has been going steady for years, it has a decent chance of surviving the divorce, ugly reveal, and sudden lack of money. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it all peters out in about a year due to the aforementioned issues and the fact that it isn't an affair anymore. It's just another boring old relationship.
Bruh, that ending though. I feel like I just got hit by a truck.
Oh yeah, that poor guy.
Our poor audience. I feel like we owe them an apology for making them feel how we feel right now. My heart, ouch.
Oh come on, Karen, you know you don't have a heart.
Silence, you fool.
Am I the jerk for not telling my father and stepmother about my son's birth? I'm 26, female. My father, who's 59, male, has been dating Paula, who's 38, for 4 years. I never got to know her well, as I was about to move out when we met. My sister, who's 20, still lives between our parents and likes Paula, but finds her annoying. Paula has an odd attitude towards pregnancy. It became the most obvious when my cousin announced she was expecting back in 2021. Her daughter would be the first great-grandchild. We hadn't been sure my grandma would be around for that, and after an emotional announcement in which everyone was overjoyed, Paula commented that she felt it wasn't a big deal and didn't get what the fuss was about. She kept that stance for all 9 months, but once the baby was born, Paula suddenly became a bit too interested, which my cousin was clearly very uncomfortable with. My husband, 28 male, and I announced our pregnancy earlier this year. At first, my father was over the moon, since this is his first grandchild. I believed that would last. But as I heard from my sister, Paula was just as condescending as we expected, if not more. Whenever I announce anything about my pregnancy or my baby, Paula always reacts with one of 3 phrases.
Okay, that's not a big deal.
Or,
is that all she talks about these days?
I didn't care about it at first, but after a few weeks, I started to notice my father was also losing any interest he had in my pregnancy. As the months went by, he became increasingly detached and standoffish. He started to either ignore or not pay attention to most of the updates I made on my baby. He also didn't come to our name reveal, which we did that instead of a gender reveal. It was literally just a lunch party with a game we made up, or the baby shower because, and I quote, Paula doesn't think it's worth it. My son was born on Halloween, and I decided not to tell my father or Paula. After almost 9 months of excuses and disinterest, I didn't see any reason to. I was in the hospital for 4 days, during which only mine and my husband's closest friends and family visited us. The day before we left, I posted a picture of my son on Instagram, and that's when my father found out. He called to ask why I hadn't told him and Paula or invited them to meet my baby. I didn't lie. They didn't make any effort to get involved, both emotionally and physically, during my pregnancy, so they'd have to wait for baby news like everybody else. My father and Paula are furious, accusing me of using my son as a pawn and keeping them away out of pettiness. They're saying I'm holding the fact that they missed a few dumb parties against them. My husband and pretty much my whole family agrees with me. My sister, while mostly on my side, still thinks I should have told my father, since this is his first grandchild and he had to find out that he was born through social media. She thinks this is all Paula's fault and I should apologize to our dad. Am I the jerk? Has Paula ever been pregnant or had kids herself? Her disinterest in pregnancy details and then being super into your cousin's baby once they were born seems to me like it's her being jealous that she never went through that. OP. No, but from what I gather, she doesn't want to. Not the jerk. And furthermore, 1. Don't have any second thoughts about if what you did was right or wrong. 2. The BS he, your pops, might not have, probably didn't know, wasn't aware. It's all bull. He's a grown man who has kids of his own. He knows everything that happens during a pregnancy. 3. You get what you give. No relationship should be an excuse to treat people like crap. He gave off, I don't care vibes, and you just reflected it back. You shouldn't have to go out of your way. Your job is to grow a baby. Your dad's job is to grow a pair. You're doing great. Set the boundaries and stick to them. You don't owe them a relationship with your son. That needs to be earned and nurtured by him. Good luck and congratulations. Would I be the jerk if I invited my ex to my wedding? I, 24 female, am getting married to my fiance, 24 male, and have been going over the guest list. We're planning on a bigger wedding, so whoever we want there, we invite. Before we got together, we were friends in separate romantic relationships. Mine ended decently, and I'm still friends with my ex. His did not. She was horrible to him. I see my ex like a brother/friend now, and I want to invite him to my wedding. Originally, when I brought this up, my fiance didn't make any comment on it. He's met my friend before, and I thought he was fine with it. A couple of weeks later, I got a call from my fiance's sister. She told me that her brother has been asking her for advice because he doesn't want my friend there, but doesn't want to come off as jealous. She said it's inappropriate that I even suggested inviting him, and said it would look like I wasn't over him. She even brought up that my friend might try and sabotage the wedding or try to win me back. I told her it wasn't any of her business, and my fiance should have come to me about this, not her. She pushed back, saying that I wouldn't tolerate it if he invited his ex. I told her that that was different. His ex is a lying, manipulative jerk. My ex is my friend, who I've known since high school, and we didn't work out. She said, "It should go without saying, you don't bring your ex to your wedding." I'm inviting my friend. It should go without saying if my partner has an issue, he should come to me. We kept going back and forth until I told her that I will talk to my fiance about this, and I hung up. A part of me thinks his sister is exaggerating or that my fiance is projecting his bad breakup onto me, but he's never brought this up before. I don't know what to do or say to him. Am I being too protective of a friendship versus my partnership? It's his day just as much as mine. Would I be the jerk if I invited my ex to my wedding? How old were you and your ex when you got together and split up? How long ago did you split up? How quickly did you and your fiance get together after you and your ex split up? Was there any overlap? No judgment if there was. Any particular reason why you and your ex broke it off? And more questions and questions and questions. I know it seems like a lot of info, but I think it's all useful for a level judgment. OP. Fair enough, I'll give a timeline. Friend and I knew each other since 9th grade and got together in 11th grade. College first year we went to the same school and I became friends with future fiance. Shortly before college second year started, future fiance had a big breakup. Friend and I drifted apart and broke it off a few months after that in September of 2020. Fiance and I got together that December. Fiance proposed last March. There was no cheating involved, but friend and I realized we weren't as close as we used to be in 2020 when we went home for break, so it was inevitable. You would not be the jerk. That being said, I don't think this is a hill worth dying on. If your fiance eventually talks to you about the situation himself and expresses his discomfort, then I'd probably err on the side of keeping him happy, even if his insecurity doesn't necessarily come from the most mature place. OP. Honestly, if it comes down to it, my fiance has to come first. It sucks since the friendship has lasted far longer than the relationship with friend, but at the end of the day, I love fiance more than anyone. I know fiance had a horrendous breakup as well, so I wonder if there is some projection since we were both newly split when we started dating. Update. Last night we sat down and I asked about the call with his sister. Fiance admitted that he had been venting and asking her for advice. He knew she was going to bring it up to me, but didn't know she'd bring up his ex or yell over the phone. I asked why he didn't talk to me about it. Fiance explained it was a few things. One, his ex cheated on him with a lot of friends while dating. Just texting my friend, hanging out with my friend tonight, etc. Second, he didn't realize how much it bothered him until he thought about it, and by then we already agreed on friend as a guest. Third, he's known friend for a few years now, and neither of us ever made a move. He felt he was being paranoid and didn't want to come off as controlling, especially since friend is in our friend group, and if he was the only one not invited, fiance worried that he'd look insecure. Someone made a good point that we never established a boundary. Friend is still a friend, but I love my fiance. I said I didn't want to cut out an entire friendship if I didn't have to, and we compromised. Since the whole friend group mainly sticks to group chats, friend can only talk to us via the group chat, in person or public socials. Fiance offered to do the same with a different friend of his that he used to have a crush on. I didn't know about that until he said it, but I told him he didn't have to. He also asked that I double check with him when friend attends any group hangouts. For the wedding, we might ask friend to come to the reception, but not to the ceremony to avoid drama. Friend has asked in the group chat, no official invitations yet, but the whole group knows we're planning, if he can bring his girlfriend to the reception, but not the ceremony, since, his words, "Don't think my friend's big day is the best place to bring a date, but if there's a good party afterwards, I'd love for you guys to get to know her." We talked over how it all made fiance feel, and I do feel better going forward. He apologized for not coming to me, and I apologized for making him feel like I couldn't be trusted to talk to. Not gonna lie, I'm still a little freaked out he's going to secretly hate everything I do now since he felt like he couldn't talk to me, but I'm just being paranoid idiot. Note, some noted I was too fixated on sister, and I agree. It was unexpected and I got too defensive. Fiance didn't know she had been so aggressive, but clearly the problem is with me. Something has to be wrong with me if he'd go to her instead of me about this. It's shaken a lot of confidence that I had, but I needed the reality check. Communication is crucial for marriage. Those that pointed out their exes to friends made me feel better too. Like most, I hope to keep most of my friends in my life, but my husband has to come first. Thank you for your kindness and advice. Bro, these people are not ready for a marriage yet. How did this go from not inviting her ex to the wedding to never being able to talk to her ex outside of groups and always having to check in with her soon-to-be husband for permission to attend events the ex might be at? That's a crazy leap. I can understand not wanting your fiance's ex at your wedding, but now they're barely allowed to maintain a friendship? Even though she's never done a single thing to warrant his concern, that would definitely not work for me. Yeah, this does not feel like a reasonable resolution to me. It requires OP to run all her interactions with her friends group by her fiance. Nope. I'm single, so I don't know. But is there really something wrong with the fiance going to his sister first? What if the sister had talked some sense into him and he realized he was overthinking it? For me, the problem was the sister confronting OP. It's one thing for the fiance to talk to someone about where his head is at, another for them to preempt him and yell at OP. Never cut an ex out of your life for a new partner. Only controlling, insecure mama's boys make those types of demands. I decided a long time ago that I would never cut an ex out of my life because of some new guy that I start dating. As soon as he shows concern about me hanging out with an ex, it's a major red flag and means he doesn't trust or respect you. Why is it so hard to find guys these days who are secure enough to be okay with a girlfriend staying friends with her ex? Sometimes it feels like I'll just have to be single forever, but I'd rather be single than be with a controlling jerk who doesn't deserve me. Your comment made me laugh. I gave up on dating 8 years ago and finally moved abroad. It was a huge culture shock to me when I moved and realized that I could actually find a partner with traditional values and common sense. I've been married for 6 years now and we have 2 sons. Look, I don't know who you are, but I agree on your prediction that you'll be single forever. People like you are so obsessed with not being controlled that you push away all the good dating prospects. We have to go where we are wanted, and sadly, America is no longer it. Edit. Calling me names because of the life I chose. Yeah, real mature. And to those of you saying that I couldn't get women in America, I assure you I dated some beautiful ones. But on the inside, that's where there was no beauty to be found. Ew. Passport bros are the most pathetic of them all. Tell the truth, you couldn't pull a date here in America, probably because you're about a 2 on a good day. So you desperately went to a third world country to find some poor woman who will be with you out of desperation for your money. It's hilarious to me that you guys think any woman from another country would actually want to be with you if it wasn't for your money. Passport bros are some of the most cringe people online. My mother-in-law is demanding to be paid for babysitting our toddler. My wife, who's 39, is turning 40 in 10 days. To celebrate, we're taking a 5-day vacation, just the 2 of us. It's the first time that she and I, 38 male, have been away like this as a couple since the birth of our son, almost 4 years ago. We planned this trip months ago, and my wife asked her mom if she'd be willing to come over to our house and watch our son while we're away. Mother-in-law agreed right away. Mother-in-law is in her early 60s, but doesn't have a real job. She'll do cleaning for her brother, who owns a bunch of rental properties, and he pays her in cash. So it's not like she has a schedule she has to clear to stay with our son for a few days. Last weekend, my wife called mother-in-law to talk to her about our trip and to ask if there's anything mother-in-law will need or want us to stock in the house as far as food and necessities. During the conversation, mother-in-law said that she will need $100 per day from us. This is the first time she ever brought up wanting to be paid for watching our son. My wife was caught off guard and just kind of agreed to it. But when she got off the phone and told me about it, I got upset. I told her that mother-in-law is taking advantage of the situation because she thinks we have no other options. I told her that it's BS she sprung this on us so close to our trip, and I don't think we should pay her anything. I said that I would call my parents and see if they can watch our son instead. My wife told me that mother-in-law wouldn't ask that sort of thing unless she needs the money, and that adding $500 to our vacation trip isn't that much of a big deal. I told her that it's not about the money to me, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and manipulative. I called my mom and asked her if they would be able to watch our son instead, and she jumped at the idea. Both my parents are recently retired, so they have plenty of free time and would love an extended grandson visit. I didn't explain the reason for the change. I just told them that things didn't work out with mother-in-law. I told my wife that my parents can watch our son instead and that she should call her mom and tell her that we no longer need her to babysit. She said that she didn't want to do that because mother-in-law was really looking forward to seeing our son. It's been over 6 months. I told her that if she was looking forward to it that much, she wouldn't be trying to swindle us out of $500. I told her if she didn't want to make the call, I would gladly do it. She reluctantly made the call herself, but it didn't go well. Mother-in-law got upset because we are now depriving her of seeing her grandson. My wife got emotional and ended up backtracking and said that she would talk to me and see if we could work something out. After the call, she asked me if there was some way we could figure this out, and I told her we aren't changing anything again this close to our trip. She said maybe we could offer mother-in-law a smaller amount, but I reiterated that it isn't about the money, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and trying to take advantage of us. Not the jerk. If she needed and wanted to be paid, it should have been discussed up front. It's not something you bring up last minute. Not the jerk. Your parents have made a much more attractive offer. You have other options, so no. You are not in a position to have to give in. She wants to be paid to see her grandkid, no deal. Is mother-in-law broke and too proud to ask for money? You're the jerk for the way you're dictating this to your wife. You clearly expect veto power over money and other big decisions. That kind of sucks. I'm a guy, but if my wife wanted to give her mom $500 for doing absolutely nothing, I wouldn't dream of saying no. And she would say the same about me and my parents. In this case, it was actually compensation for her time providing care for your kids. Is the mother-in-law being a little manipulative with her late request? Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe she just needs the money, and rather than ask for a handout, she asked for compensation. Should you stomp all over your wife's decision because her mom made a minor request that you disagreed with? Absolutely not. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
If his parents will watch the kid for free, why should they pay her mom to do it? That last commenter though, some people just have no common sense.
Am I the jerk for embarrassing a lunch thief at work? I don't think I'm the jerk, but I've been getting some flack for it, so I really wanted to clear this up. So I started a new job recently. I work in a small studio and there are several others in the building. Think open plan office with sections assigned to each studio. The person I had an altercation with doesn't work for my studio, just FYI. I eat lunch around 1 p.m. and most people eat lunch at noon. I came down early to eat at noon. I made coffee, and while at the counter, I noticed my Tupperware in the sink, empty. Imagine my surprise when I turned around and saw a man I didn't even know sitting down at the table with my food on his plate. He had just stuck it in the microwave. Acting rashly since I was mad, I sat down next to him and said, "Hey, that looks good. Mind if I try it?" Then before waiting for an answer, I yanked the plate away from him and snatched his fork out of his hand. He just blinked in shock, as did everyone else as I started eating. He then, quite loudly, asked what I thought I was doing, and I replied, You know, this was actually much better when I first cooked it. It probably lost some flavor in the fridge." He caught on quickly that it was my food and he turned a little red. I then asked him where he got the gall to steal someone else's lunch and then asked them what they were doing when they took it back. He stuttered out some nonsense about not knowing it was mine, and I replied, "Well, you knew it wasn't yours, right?" He just mumbled something like an apology, and I said that's no problem. It was nice he had warmed it up for me at least, in an admittedly annoyed tone, and then he just got up and left, and the people there just stared in silence. Two of the silent watchers, maybe his mates, I don't know, told me that I was rude to him and that there had been nicer ways to go about it. I told them to think about how they'd feel if someone ate their food before saying they should focus on their own lunch and I'll focus on mine. Well, it's been a little awkward at lunch since then, and I have the impression a few people are talking crap about me at work now. Maybe I could have been nicer, sure. I still don't think I was wrong. But tell me, Reddit, am I the jerk? Unpopular opinion, but you're the jerk. People who steal food for no reason absolutely are jerks, but you don't know this guy's living situation or financial situation. He should not have stolen your stuff, but publicly humiliating someone who may have to steal to survive? Nope, I would never do that. I would have pulled him to the side and politely let him know that it was my lunch. That way you get your lunch back. Don't humiliate him and don't look like a jerk to the rest of the office. OP. I see where you're coming from, but I don't see this as an acceptable excuse. He doesn't know my financial situation either. I've moved recently into a new apartment with a roommate and had to pay 3 times rent for the first month, deposit and first month's rent. And my low 3 months probation pay at work just barely covers rent, not considering utilities, groceries, fuel for my car, etc. I've been dipping into savings till I can get better pay and spent the first month in my place eating on the floor because we had no furniture or spare cash to get some. It's very unfair to put a stranger's financial situation ahead of mine when I cook in bulk to save money and sometimes eat the same food for lunch all week. I saw some comments saying I should go to HR, but my studio doesn't have HR, and the perp doesn't work for the same place. We do have a de facto office manager, but I don't want to take it any further since I'm still new here and on probation. I think my reaction might have been enough. Update. I finally found out from a new friend at work that yes, the lunch thief had struck before. Apparently, everyone wrote their names on their lunch to combat this, and the thief then targeted unmarked lunch or lunch items. Guess no one told me. People apparently started being petty and standoffish to the thief's ends, and he blames me for that. Also, according to my new friend, most were actually very pleased that the thief was finally identified and dealt with. I was assured that besides the thief in question and his cronies, no one thought I was being a jerk. However, not knowing much about me, they assumed I was a very serious or cliquey person from my reaction, which I mean is fair. I dress very professionally when most of the office dresses quite casually, which probably added to that. I've started to come down to lunch earlier to chat with some people, and the office seems to be warming up to me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the lunch thief? Please let us know. How on earth anyone can make excuses for a lunch thief who gets called out, I'll never know. My boss is rude to my husband, and I don't know how to bring it up to him. I work as a bookseller, and about a year ago, our bookshop got a new manager. This was a great thing for the shop and for me personally. He's much more competent than anyone we've had in the past and has a real drive for developing people. I happen to be the person he's focused on developing, and it's been wonderful. I get paid more now, have lots more responsibility, and I'm being provided with all the training to start managing my own shop before Christmas. I'm being treated as a rising star in the business. We're part of a very big chain and given a lot of opportunities to excel, which of course feels fantastic. I'm very grateful. There's only one thing though. My boss is very keen to socialize with me outside of work, but one-on-one and as part of the management team. The culture in our shop has always been that partners, spouses, housemates, friends, etc. are very welcome at these events. However, my manager seems to absolutely despise my husband. I can't find any reason for this. Obviously, I love him, so you could argue that I'm biased. But really, everybody adores my partner. He's gentle, fun, and a good listener, and he always proves a popular addition. Honestly, half of my colleagues probably prefer him to me. He's only spoken to my boss a couple times, and only briefly, but my boss is openly dismissive of him. He makes disparaging remarks about him, stops engaging in conversations when I bring him up, and recently, when my husband arrived at some drinks, my boss visibly and obviously swung his entire body around in his seat so that he was facing away from us and left not long after that. I have no idea what to do. I have a fantastic working relationship with my boss, and frankly, I plan to capitalize on that. But this makes me really uncomfortable. For further context, I'm a woman and he's a man, and he's single. However, he's often told me that his preference is for very done-up, alternative but feminine women, which does not describe me. I'm scraggly-haired, no makeup, shapeless clothing wear. At first, I tried to dismiss his disparaging comments as an awkward attempt at humor, but after he so rudely turned away from my partner at the drinks, I'm angry. I don't know how to bring this up with them, or if I even should. Help. Update. The situation remained an odd one. While I wussed out of taking your advice when it came to actually talking to my manager about it, I thought there was enough plausible deniability that it might make me look like a bit of a nutter. I did start shutting down the comments when they cropped up, and being rather icier than I normally would be. As women, we're so socialized to be warm and accommodating that I think this took him by surprise, and the snide comments stopped pretty much dead. I've also set a firm boundary on socializing with him in anything but the largest, most work-centric outings. He got a bit snippy when I didn't come to his birthday, but sorry, I was out with my husband. Some friends of ours recently had a baby, so we had a very fun evening playing house with said baby, while the new parents got to have a rare night out together. I even showed my boss some adorable pictures of my husband cuddling the baby. I know, it's petty. However, the sheer wealth of commenters speculating that my boss has a crush on me has me thinking. They're probably right, and if they are right, then the way he's going about things is uncomfortable, creepy, and unethical. As we move into the much busier period in our shop, he started scheduling just the two of us to work late in the shop to catch up. Normally, this is a job that a team of at least 3 people would do, presumably to avoid situations like this. To add to the issue, as my commenters predicted, I didn't end up getting my own store. Imagine, I needed a 90% on my performance review to get promoted into it. They gave me an 89.9. Boss and the HR rep, who always sits in on these reviews as a representative of the regional manager, said in recognition of how hard I work and how many additional duties I take on, they'd enter me for a specific excellence award, which comes with a cash bonus. They've since come back to me and said, unfortunately, it turns out that's not what the award is for. I then set a meeting to discuss pay and advance the points that I'm taking on much more work than I was at this point last year, and getting paid effectively less for it due to the rampant inflation. The answer was that a raise was not possible, and the plan going forward would be to schedule another performance review after Christmas and discuss it then. Following this, I attended the Christmas meeting where they told us how our old shop was forecast to take upwards of $60,000 a day. I've had a couple of days since then to reflect on how I feel, and I've come up with it: undervalued and angry. Update 2. I got another job. After I wrote to you with my update, I decided I was furious enough to quit without another job offer in my pocket. To the abject horror of my parents, I did just that. I was, of course, very nervous about going voluntarily unemployed at the beginning of a recession, but I'm so pleased to report that, thanks in no small part to your job application advice, I've been offered another job. It's fewer hours, more money, more benefits, and to the relief of my formerly horrified parents, much more prestige. Since the offer came in, my boss has noticeably ignored me, which was an improvement. On my last day, he then handed me a card with a poem inside of it, and I kid you not, it said, "Don't tell your hubby." I just laughed at it and said, of course I would tell my husband. We share everything. Boss then squeezed my shoulder and said, "I'll miss you," in an embarrassing heartfelt voice. Yikes. I did of course show my husband the card. I then took great pleasure in deleting my former boss from my phone, thoughts, and my life. I'm willing to bet that the creepo was pushing his usual type so that when he made a move, he could pull the, "You're so different from what I'm usually attracted to. You must be something special." Overheard my wife tell her friend on the phone that she settled for being with me and that marrying me was her last resort. I overheard my wife talking to one of her best friends on the phone while I was passing the bedroom. This friend is in a serious relationship. My wife then said to her, "Sweetie, remember it's your choice. Don't settle for just anyone. That's the mistake I made. Who knows who else I could have had? OP was my very last resort, and now look where it made me end up." Hearing that honestly broke my heart in two. Does she even love me? Why am I being treated as a second base? Am I being dramatic and overreacting? I haven't said anything about it since. I honestly don't know what to do, but hearing her say that has really made me upset. Update. Just did one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Today after breakfast, I told her we should sit down and talk. She was hesitant, but I said it was important. We went to the living room and she said to me, "I already know what this is about." My post apparently made it to the front page, so of course she saw it after scrolling down a bit under popular. Of course, the waterworks started happening right away. I told her what she had said had deeply hurt me, but obviously she already knew that since she read my post. Through her tears, she said, "I was just joking. I wasn't serious." She then went on saying stuff like, "I love you. I love you." I told her I can't be in a marriage where my significant other doesn't love me the same way I love them. She tried to tell me that she loved me and that I meant something to her, but it was all BS. She said she didn't want to lose me. I told her I don't think this marriage was the right decision, and from there, I basically told her it was over. I told her I knew how she really felt about me, and that was messed up. She basically played with my emotions. For all those wondering, we have no kids, and I pay fully for the apartment we live in, and I own almost everything we have other than her clothes. I also pay for her car. So after all of this, she'll have little to nothing left. Before our marriage, we also signed a prenup, and at the moment, I've never been so happy with the decision I've made in my life. After that, it was a few seconds of awkward silence before she said to me, "Forget you," then started screaming at me, telling me, "You can't just end things like this." I told her I could do whatever I wanted, and that's when she became very hostile. She screamed at me saying, "You're the worst relationship I've ever been in. You think I can't find someone again? Do you think you'll ever be with someone as good as me? You're an idiot, OP." She grabbed her bag and phone and said, "I'm leaving," before slamming the door behind her. At that moment, I felt like I was on one of those dramatic sitcoms you'd find on TV. I sat down on the couch and cried, and I'm still crying as I type this up. It's both happy and sad tears, and I knew it was only time before she cheated on me or left me. She never loved me, it was obvious. Our relationship only went one way, and I feel like a complete idiot for not seeing it earlier. I live in California, and I'm gonna start the process to annul our marriage. Tomorrow, I'm gonna start throwing all of her belongings in the trash bags because that's essentially where they belong. I'm not throwing out her stuff, just using the trash bags as a way to give her back her things that she owns. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your kind words and great advice. You gave me the courage to stand up for myself, and I know my life will certainly improve as a result. You want his car? Take his other crap first. My partner, Carl, and I were friends at first, and when he lost his house due to bankruptcy, he came to live with me. He had no job, lived in poverty on a disability pension, of which he gave his ex half, for 14 years since his wife left. In contrast, I owned my own house, had a successful business, and was pretty independent. He was very handy around the house and loved puttering, talking with the neighbors, and had a great sense of humor. He was clean and very easy to live with. We were together for 10 years. We treated each other well, but he had no rights to anything I owned and vice versa. I stayed away from his family drama as best as I could. Carl had 2 adult kids, Margot, who's 28, and Todd, who's 35. The kids never visited their father ever, and when he called them, they rarely picked up or returned his calls. If they did pick up, they brushed him off or dismissed him entirely. I felt bad for him, but what could I do? They were like that for years before I met him. They were rude and nasty people, but he loved them and couldn't understand why they didn't have the time to talk to him. Carl passed suddenly one evening at 58. He had been in poor health, and finally his heart just gave out. Not 12 hours after he passed, Margot called to ask if he had any life insurance. For a nanosecond, I thought that she was concerned about my finances handling the burial, etc. But no. She told me that according to their mother separation agreement, he was supposed to keep life insurance on himself, and she and Todd were to be the beneficiaries. I guess he never told her that once she turned 18, he had canceled his life insurance because he was on disability and couldn't afford it. He may have tried to tell her during one of the phone calls, who knows. Later the same day, Margot called and asked if he had a will. She told me that she had already been talking to a lawyer. This was a day after he passed, and that because she suspected Carl didn't have a will, she would be his next of kin. She would be taking over the burial arrangements, etc., and she was the beneficiary of all of his stuff in my house, including his car, which was a used car, but still newer than hers. I was pretty upset by the timing of all of this and couldn't believe they could be this mean and cruel so soon after he had passed. He was their dad and he loved them. She then told me she would be doing a walkthrough of my house to be sure I didn't miss anything of his. That was when I said, "No, you won't." Margot got really upset about my refusal to let her into my house and to take the car the same day, and conveniently forgot to tell me where they were having the funeral. She didn't put it in the paper, and she only told special people where it was. I found out later it was 3 towns away. But she did let me know repeatedly that they wanted the car and all of his stuff out of my house. I knew that once she came to take the car, she would not be back to get the rest of his stuff, which she knew was nothing of any value. I would be left to get rid of a monumental amount of stuff at my expense. Cue malicious compliance. Now, dear Carl was a hoarder, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. Even if something was broken, useless, outdated, or worn out, he kept it. So he had 4 old-style TVs, 6 giant toolboxes, 8 computers, 2 barbecues, a floor model drill press that he was going to fix, a bandsaw he found in the dump, 6 stereo components. None of this stuff ever worked. He was saving them all for parts. Plus 198 boxes of metal parts from odd machines, trucks, cars, bulldozers, and buses that he had salvaged and collected over the years. It was all in the garage, which he thought was his man cave. 198 very heavy boxes. Guess they were packed quite full. Plus the pride of his collection, a 60-year-old 5-ton metal lathe that Noah used to construct the Ark. So I parked his car at the very back of my 2-car garage, then shoved all of the boxes of stuff in front of it, so that it was impossible to remove the car without taking everything out in front of it, including the metal lathe. It took 2 weeks and a lot of effort, but the garage was packed to the roof. I took a picture of the garage with the doors open. Margot and Todd soon started screaming to their lawyer that I was not cooperating in regards to the car. I responded that I needed to see a legal document that the car was in fact legally theirs, registered into their name, and properly insured in case they drove it away. I didn't want to be held liable. I also needed to have the rest of the stuff taken away. Plus, I had just had my driveway paved, so they had to have proper movers come to get his stuff, not just a couple of yahoos in a pickup that would damage my new driveway. They said they would, after they got the car. Their lawyer screamed that I was stalling and refusing to give up the car. He even went so far as to accuse me of selling the car. I sent the picture I had taken of the garage to my lawyer, proving that I still had the car. My lawyer said, "Where is it?" I said, "You can just barely see the roof, but it's over there behind the boxes." He got a good laugh out of that. So Margot and Todd had to hire a moving and storage company to come and collect Carl's precious stuff. The metal lathe took 4 men and a special small tow motor machine thing to take it away. It took all day for them to empty that garage. I asked where they were taking it, and they said to a storage unit. The head mover said something to the effect that there was no way this was all going to fit in the one storage unit they had rented. Oh well. So in the end, the cost of the movers was $14,000. I heard this from his best friend, and who knows what the storage unit costs and for how long they rented them. Perhaps they recouped some of the money they spent from selling scrap metal. They also had to pay for his funeral. Turns out I did have an insurance policy on him that I paid for and had planned to use it for his burial. But since I wasn't told where the funeral was, I used the money to pay off my mortgage instead. It would have cost them nothing to be nice to the woman that looked after their dad for 10 years. Am I the jerk for not being an active grandparent? I, male 47, have a son, Jake, who's 26, who has his own son, Mike, who's 5. Jake's mother and I only had a short-term relationship, and it was an accidental pregnancy. To be blunt, I never wanted to be a parent, particularly not at 21. However, Jake's mother did, and it wasn't my decision. Although we've always kept the peace, things have always been icy between us due to that. However, I always tried to do right by Jake. I would have him every other weekend and for a month during the summer. Would do my best to deliver on anything he asked of me, treated him kindly, and tried to be a good dad. Then at a certain point, his mother married a guy that Jake hated, and I had him move in with me once he was 13. I won't lie, I wasn't cut out to be a parent. I love Jake, but I just hated parenting. I did it anyway since he was my son. We have a very good relationship, and I've never shirked any responsibility to him. Jake also became a father at 21. However, he was all for it and is happily married to Mike's mother. I also got him into my electrician's union and had him set up on some good jobs. So he was on much better footing than I was for a kid. Back then, we had a long talk, and I told him, "Jake, being a parent is very different life. It's hard, exhausting, and on a day-to-day basis, you don't really get to do what you want to do very much. It will be a very long time before you don't have that kind of responsibility anymore." Then the conversation turned to how I'd help him. I told him, no, I'm retired from parenting. I'm turning back to my own life. He has his own home, a union job, is engaged, and adult enough to decide to have a baby. He's the adult now. He's the parent. I'll be around, and if there are any emergencies, obviously I'll do what I can, but I won't be an active grandparent. I've largely held to it. I've been doing a lot of travel. I have a girlfriend, hobbies, and to be blunt, I'm doing all the things I didn't get to do in my 20s. Do I see Jake and his family? Yes. However, I rarely agree to babysit. Jake resents that I don't go to Mike's games. They tend to conflict with my weightlifting club, and that I'm pretty hands-off with Mike. Things came to a head last week when Mike had a baseball tournament and I refused to go because I had plans to take a scuba class with my girlfriend, which admittedly could be rescheduled. I didn't tell Jake this, but I spent so many Saturdays bored out of my skull watching Little League when Jake was little. I always cheered loudly, was crazy supportive, and never let on that it was like watching paint dry, but this is no longer my responsibility. So I told him, "Jake, I spent 20 years parenting. That's enough." He then yelled at me that I'm always jetting around, playing like a teenager, not putting him first. I told him that no, I wasn't. I did that for 20 years to get him on his feet as an adult. I've done that, and I can go back to prioritizing my own life. You might not be the jerk, but you're ruining your relationship with your son by essentially saying, "I don't care about being actively involved in your life. I've already done the bare minimum expected of me, and I won't do more." Do you want him to go no contact with you? Because that's the direction this is heading in. OP. Maybe this will make me the jerk, but if that's the price, okay. I've spent 20 years putting Jake first and not really having much of a life. I didn't get on a plane to Thailand and change my name. I didn't tell his mom, "I don't want to be a father, so if you have a baby, I'll pay child support, but leave me alone." I was a very active parent. Jake was raised into a fully functional adult with a stable, steady job, his own home, and his own wife and baby. I did it because I fathered a kid. He couldn't take care of himself, and it was my responsibility. Jake is fully able to take care of himself and Mike, as is Mike's mother. If I need to give up the next 20 years and be daddy again, no, I'll only do it once. This time, I'm actually getting on the plane to Thailand. The price is too high. I've done my duty and hung up my parent hat. At this point, yes, I'm done. I've signed up for and took responsibility for Jake. Jake chose to have Mike, well and good. But now he's the parent, not me. Although every disagreement on the internet always has going no contact is literally the first port of call, real life isn't like that. But because it seems that's what everyone wants to talk about, if let's say that it really came down to that, so be it. I'd wish him and his family well. But whether it makes me the jerk or not, I've taken my life back, and I'm not going to put it to the side again. If the choices are I walk off into the sunset or I have to be a daddy again, I'm walking off into the sunset. Nobody has threatened such a thing, nor is anyone talking about it. But this being the internet, it is the go-to that everyone says immediately. I hope things don't go that way. I don't want them to go that way. But if those are the terms, that'll be my choice. My boyfriend faked a proposal, so I broke up with him. I, 24 female, have been dating my boyfriend, Andrew, who's 26, for 5 years now. We've had a healthy and stable relationship up until today. Andrew has always been a prankster and makes jokes with me all the time, and I do it with him too. But today, he took it way too far. In the morning, he woke me up at 7 a.m. and told me to wake up because he wanted to take me to the spa. I was pretty surprised because it wasn't a special day or anything, but I was all for it. At the spa, he told me how he wanted to go to a fancy restaurant after we were done at the spa and that he was paying. Of course, I agreed as we hadn't been out together in a long time. We then got to the restaurant. We had a beautiful and romantic dinner and just a nice time in general. We were talking about a house we were planning to move into and chit-chatted about other stuff too. After around 40 minutes, Andrew stood up and got on his knees and took a box out of his pocket. My heart stopped beating. I hadn't even predicted this. We've never even talked about proposals before, but I also thought how great the time was now. He did a speech about how I was the most beautiful girl in the world and how he wanted to live with me forever and ended it with, "Will you marry me, my princess?" Of course, I said yes. Seconds later, all that excitement turned into horror. He opened the small box that I expected he had put the ring into, and instead it was a note saying, "You've been pranked," and Andrew started laughing hysterically. He continued with, "Baby, this was just a prank. I'm not ready at all to marry you yet." He was leaning in to hug me, but I gave him the biggest slap ever with tears streaming down my face. I just told him, "We're over, you scumbag." I'm now sitting in my bed crying and writing this, and I don't know what to do. He's been texting and calling me, but I haven't responded because I feel so sad, betrayed, and mostly angry. I thought this was going to be one of the best days of my life. What should I do? What do you mean, what should you do? You announced that you have big news. You and Andrew are finally ready to let everyone know that the relationship was just a prank. You're actually single. Then go date someone else who actually cares about you. Old boy took it too far. It's hard to come back from that sort of disrespect. I think you would be best not seeing him anymore. He lied to you and he tricked you. Now he can deal with the fallout. Karen tricked me into eating meat knowing I was a vegan. I've been vegan for 10 years and vegetarian for 3 before that. One thing to know is that after not eating meat, a person can't jump right back into eating a lot of it without some seriously unpleasant digestive issues. It has to be reintroduced slowly. I found that out by chance when I accidentally got drunk at a bonfire party, got confused between the vegetarian chili and meat chili, and spent the next day and a half fighting for my life on the toilet. Or another time I had a stew with meat by accident and it came out both ends at the same time. That was fun to clean. After these experiences, I've decided that if I ever eat meat by accident again, I'm just gonna throw up real quick, because that's at least better than a day or 2 of stomach issues. So last week, I was visiting my boyfriend and his family, and his parents and brothers have always given me crap for being vegan. They crack jokes about it all the time, but this time they were kinda pleasant, and on the last day said they had made me a meatless family recipe. This pasta was chunky red sauce with a bunch of veggies and stuff. It was kinda weird tasting, but I was polite about it when they asked, and I said I liked it. Then his dad was like, "Ha! Did you hear her? She said she liked it." And the whole family, except my boyfriend and I, were acting like it was some big joke. Then his dad revealed it had ground beef in the sauce. I was like, oh no, internally, because I had a 4-hour flight the next morning, and I did not want to spend it in the airplane bathroom. So I was like, excuse me, and I walked to the bathroom. His family was like, what? So as a bit of an answer to them, I didn't shut the door when I did what I was about to do, which was throw up. It was a little dramatic, honestly, But I'd rather it come out once easily than unpleasantly on the plane or bus, especially because the bus has no bathrooms. His family was getting kind of mad at me for throwing up with the door open because my boyfriend's brother's kid's daughter got grossed out and threw up also. I was upset, but decided it was better to spend my energy just buzzing off, so I was like, better out than in, right? I bounced and my boyfriend came with me, though he had been trying to talk to his family before I put my foot down and said I was out, with or without him. He's mad at his family for obvious reasons, but he's also kind of upset with me for how I handled stuff. Feeling like making everyone hear and see me throw up, not cleaning up the splatter, and then heading out fairly wordlessly. I was like, nah, I handled it fine. I wasn't being dramatic. I didn't want to be sick on the airplane tomorrow. And the splatter? They're lucky it wasn't coming out from the other end. At this point, I started laughing at the idea, which made my boyfriend even more angry. He was saying that kind of mean stuff was messed up, and I was like, chill, it's a joke. He's upset with me for that. I'm mad at his family, and I'm wondering, am I the jerk for doing this after my boyfriend's family tricked me into eating meat? Even though I'm vegan and it would cause digestive issues for me? Not the jerk. Boyfriend and his family suck. They should count themselves lucky you didn't throw up on them. These sound like the kind of people who'd think someone was making up an allergy and then put them in the ER when they decide to test their theory. They had no right doing this to you. If your boyfriend is siding with them, then he's just as bad as they are. Dump all of them. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You don't have the enzymes anymore to process meat. If they looked into it themselves, they would have realized that. They're the jerks for pulling that on you to one-up you. To be fair, they sound like the kind of people who don't believe in science. As in, if a proven fact is inconvenient or unpleasant for them, it can be ignored. Like those idiots who don't believe allergies to be real. OP probably is better off just cutting her losses and going low contact. Not the jerk. Food tampering is an awful thing to do, and in some places it's illegal. If you'd intentionally thrown up on the table in front of them to make a point, then I'd still be on your side. Everyone sucks here. They shouldn't have tricked you into eating meat. Don't mess with people's food. But what you did in their bathroom with the door open and leaving the splatter is gross. And you doubling down on it in the comments is very telling. I can't believe I had to search for this. Yes, everyone sucks here. The others more than OP, but causing the kids to throw up as a result of your actions is not cool either. Technically, the family caused it. No, the family made OP fly off the handle. Her actions that she chose to punish them with is what made the kid throw up. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend and his family? Please let us know. I know one thing for sure. They'll never trick a vegan into eating meat again. My wife left us years ago to become a van life influencer. Now she's demanding to come back. My wife left me and our kids a couple of years ago. She wanted a different life than what we had. She bought a converted van and tried to become a van life influencer. She got some followers, but not as many as it takes to be able to live off of it, I guess. She's in the city right now and her van needs repairs. We're in the middle of a heat wave and she needs a place to stay for a week or two. This is only the second time in 2 years that she's bothered to see our kids. I've done my best to make sure that they know that even though their mom is gone, it's not because she doesn't love them. I said she was working far away. Even after the divorce, I made sure she could have all the visitation she wanted. She doesn't want to stay with her parents because they're very critical of her choice to leave. She doesn't want to stay at a hotel because it will be a dent in her budget. I don't want her in my house because I don't want the kids to freak out when she leaves again. It's best if they see her in a neutral location. I volunteered to take her dogs so that she could stay at a hostel. She said I was a jerk for not letting her stay in a house that she helped pay for. I bought out her equity when we divorced. It wasn't that much. My parents said that I should just let her stay. The woman I'm seeing said that she would have understood if I let her stay. I just know what it would do to my kids. Edit. Please stop messaging me for information on my ex. I will not say more than I have. I don't want anyone messing with her livelihood. I won't tell you what her handle is or what kind of dogs she has. I have a good life without her and my kids are doing okay. Thank you for your concern. Not the jerk. You're being the best parent you can. She just up and left her family. She has no right to impose on you now. She's not there to see them. She needs a cheap place to crash. It might be tough for your kids to have her leave them again, and it's just not worth it for you or them. You bought her out, and she used that equity to pursue her new life. She doesn't want to stay with her parents? Too bad. Dent her budget? Then where's the child support? Ask your mother to speak to your ex-in-laws, or your mother can offer to host her. I told her she was out of my league and she didn't like it, so I gave her the real reason. She didn't like that either. I met this pretty chill girl at a heavy metal concert. We kept contact as we didn't live too far away, went to another concert together, sometimes went out for a coffee or museum. We didn't see one another all too often. I didn't think too much about it. She did. While drinking coffee, she asked me out on a real date. I dodged and told her that she's way out of my league, which she is by all accounts. Needless to say, she was upset. I thought it would just be like a rejection, but she really hated me for saying this. She was angry, not so much at me, but at how she got that answer many times over. How she wondered if it really was that, or if it was just a convenient thing to say to avoid the real reason, and so on. She seemed actually quite hurt, so I listened and didn't make any jokes. I just let her get it off her chest. Then she asked again if that's really what I thought. Now, I do think she's out of my league, but behind that, there's another reason on top of it. I've never had a partner. Never was any good at this kind of stuff, despite the whole self-improvement thing and traveling and so on. I was never much more than the odd one out who could make people laugh, but who was ignored. Why she didn't ignore me like everyone else did is beyond me. But after 30, I was done with hoping and working towards love. That wasn't in my cards, so I gave up. I stopped discussing love with friends, stopped looking for advice, stopped trying to get better socially. I stopped thinking about it to the best I could. I lived my life, and life would be lived alone, and that was it. It helped me get my footing again. It helped me find happiness. I'm 33. I'm not about to start dating now for the first time when I'm lagging years behind. I'm not starting with the whole trying, find out about how you handle relationships and what you want in them, and stumble around with everything while people around me are sending their kids to school and getting divorced and married again while I have the maturity of an 18-year-old in the matter. That ship has sailed. It's like I wasn't worth a thing in love before, and now, years later, I'm enough for people to settle for long after people are done with the exploring stuff and settling down. Feels like long-winded pity of sorts. As long as I'm happy, I'm good with being alone. And opening a can of worms like this seems like a good way to put a dent in my happiness. I told her that more or less. She didn't like that either. Why not just give it a try for the experience? Then I asked the questions. I asked if she spent a decade without anyone showing romantic affection towards her. She didn't. I asked if she could guess what an effect this could have on someone. She guessed pretty bad. She was right. At this point, we're in two different universes. She's looking for something that I can't give. You don't spend so long alone without walling yourself off from the idea of love. That's what I had to do to be happy again. But that doesn't work with other people. She still didn't fully understand, and I don't blame her. It's a strange situation that's hard to get without going through it. I asked her if I should have just said I wasn't interested and leave it at that. She said she didn't know. And that was it. It was a weird afternoon all around, and I felt a bit, so I'm venting. But thanks for reading. Edit. Lots of people equaling giving up on love with giving up on life. Chill. And if you really think that, get off the internet. Just because I closed the door for dating and love doesn't mean I'm letting myself do nothing and rot. I have projects and stuff to do, a book to write, and places to visit. As hard as it is for some of you to fathom, you can give up on love and still be happy in life. I'm also not blaming others for having been the undesirable one. I have friends that are unfortunate looking with a lot of success. I know it's all on me. Everything isn't so cut and dry. I'm also worried by the number of people who equate going to a museum or a concert to a date. You never do that with friends? I'm sorry you feel that way, brother. Everyone deserves love. It doesn't matter when it happens. I'd say you should seek a therapist to help your deep hurt, but I don't think you will for some reason. Still, I really hope you do. OP. I'm already seeing one, although for unrelated reasons. I will broach the subject with him next time. I did also see one back then when I struggled with lack of success. As weird as it sounds, it was my way to go forward and find some footing again. I'm not giving up on that. Bro, that ship has not sailed. This is ridiculous. 33 is not the new 85. An understanding partner is the perfect training ground. And if it doesn't work, who cares? At least you now have one experience instead of zero. You blew off a great opportunity here to dip your toes into the scary pond. She approached you. You're not the undesirable anymore. From that moment on, embrace it. Call her. I hope you haven't burned that bridge. It's hard to take rejection at the best of times, but being rejected for being out of your league is extra hard to hear for a few reasons. First, it's like you're punishing her for being desirable. Second, you're making the rejection about her when it's really about you. It's not that she was out of your league, it's that you don't feel good enough. She likely would have taken it better if you said you weren't ready to date yet because it's more accurate and it's about you. Am I the jerk for saying that I was hurt that I wasn't invited to a wedding that all of my friends were? I, 28 male, used to have a friend group of about 10 people back when we were in middle and high school. Then college happened and we all drifted apart. Nothing happened to make us drift apart, just growing up and losing contact. Still friends, but not talk all the time, hang out regularly, if that makes sense. But of course, some of us stayed close friends with each other. One person from this friend group, Kayla, fake name, who's 28, is getting married in a few weeks. I didn't get an invitation, but I wasn't hurt. I understood. We didn't stay close friends. But then I was hanging out with my best friend, Bob, 28 male, who was also in that friend group, a few days ago, and he mentioned that he's going to the wedding. I was a little surprised, but I just told him I hoped he had a good time. He asked if I was going, and I told him no, I didn't get an invitation. He said that was strange because everyone else from the group was going. 2 of them were plus ones as they were dating or married to other ones who got the invite. But they were all going, and Kayla knew it and even told Bob she was really happy that the gang was getting back together on her special day. I told Bob I was kind of hurt by that, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. 2 days pass. Kayla calls me fuming, mad that I was whining I didn't get an invite to anyone who would listen. I told her that I wasn't. I explained to her what had happened. She said that she's been getting texts and calls from other members of the group saying that she should have included me and wanted me to put a stop to it. I said I would do my best and that I was sorry I caused her this trouble. She thanked me for the apology and hung up. I called Bob and asked him why he spread this around, and he said that he didn't mean to. He felt bad that I was hurt, and he wanted to ask someone else from the group if they knew why I wasn't invited, and she spread it around, and I guess everyone wanted to know why Kayla cut me out specifically, so they started asking her. I made a Facebook group chat with all of them and politely asked them to leave Kayla alone, that I was just hurt in the moment and vented about it to my best friend, and that's where it should have stayed. They all said okay and apologized to Kayla. Yesterday, Kayla made a Facebook post ranting about me without saying my name and said she had to hire security and give them a photo of me to make sure I didn't try to crash the wedding, something I would never do. The comments under the post were calling her out. She again called me and screamed at me that I was ruining her wedding and told me that some of the friends are considering not going to the wedding now. And now I'm just wondering if I should have kept my mouth shut or stood up for myself. Was she always this unhinged? Not that I remember. She was a little intense sometimes, but never this kind of crazy. Why did you apologize? She was very mad on the phone. I was surprised that she found out about a private conversation I had in my backyard, and I felt bad that the others were asking her why I wasn't invited so much that she felt the need to call me. If I did it again, after she made the Facebook post and then called to yell at me again, I probably wouldn't have apologized, but hindsight is 20/20. You don't know what your other friends may have said to her. You're right, I don't know what they were saying to her. They said they were just asking her why I wasn't invited while the rest of them were, but I just took their word for it. They may have been rude or badgered her, and who knows what else. You're also right that it's within her right to not invite me. Of course, I didn't mean to stir any drama at all with any of this. I was just sitting outside with my best friend having some drinks, and I admitted I was hurt that everyone but me was invited, and that's all I expected it to be. Just 2 friends talking. But then this whole thing spiraled into a storm that I didn't intend in my wildest dreams. Update. I finally got an answer as to why I wasn't invited to the wedding. Turns out that someone else from the group named Samantha, again, fake names all around, has a huge crush on me for years, but has been too afraid to tell me or act on it. Samantha is in the bridal party of Kayla's wedding and told Kayla that she was finally going to make a move on me at the wedding after all her bridal party duties were taken care of. Kayla didn't like this and thinks that I'm not good enough for Samantha, but she didn't say anything and decided to just not invite me and hope that Samantha dropped it. But when Samantha heard about me not being invited, she could smell the BS and confronted Kayla. Knowing exactly why I wasn't invited, and she said she wasn't sure that she wanted to be in the bridal party after Kayla would do something like this to her. That's when Kayla called me and flipped out the first time. After the group chat where I asked them to stop, Samantha was so upset that she did drop out of the bridal party, and that prompted the second phone call to blow up at me. Samantha called me this afternoon and told me all of this, apologized for everything, and asked me out for dinner on the night of the wedding, and I accepted. This might seem petty to go out on the night of the wedding, but it was Samantha's idea. And also, Kayla's crazy, and her number and social media are blocked, so I can't get any more calls if she blows up a third time. Am I the jerk for going home without my boyfriend because he wouldn't stop having conversations? I'm 24, female. My boyfriend, who's 27, and I were invited to one of our friends' birthday parties yesterday. I had work early today, so we agreed on leaving early. Also, my boyfriend broke his foot, so I was in charge of driving. Around 11 p.m., I start to feel tired, so I told my boyfriend we were going to go soon. He said yes, let me finish my conversation. I said okay. After 5 minutes of waiting, I tell him again that I was tired, so we had to leave. He told me to wait 5 more minutes. But those 5 minutes quickly turned into 10, those 10 into 20, and 20 into 30. At this point, I was getting angry because he already promised me we'd leave early, but it was now close to midnight and he was still talking. I go to him again and tell him that if he's having fun and wants to stay, then I can ask his sister to drive him home as it's on our way. He said no and that he was coming. I told him that I was really tired and would leave without him if he wasn't there in 5 minutes. He said he'd be there. It's without surprise that after 5 minutes, he was still not there, but was having another conversation with someone else. I go to him one last time and tell him I'm leaving. I guess he didn't hear me because he didn't react. Before leaving, I go to his sister and ask if she can drive him home. She said that she would. I thanked her and I left. My boyfriend called me 10 minutes after to ask where I was. I told him I left because I was tired and he wouldn't leave. He called me a jerk and hung up. He texted me right after and told me that I was a jerk for leaving without him, that he was just talking with his friends, and that it wouldn't have hurt me to wait a little longer. He blocked me right after that and slept over at his sister's house. I texted her, and she told me he just needed time to cool down and that me leaving without him really hurt him. No new sense from him or his sister. Was I the jerk to leave without him? Perhaps it's true that I could have waited until he finished talking. Not the jerk. The real giveaway is, it wouldn't have hurt you to wait a little longer. He had no intention of leaving early and was just lying to you to keep you quiet. Not the jerk, you were clear and reasonable with your boyfriend about your need to leave. He was being disrespectful and selfish by ignoring you and continuing to talk with his friends. He also broke his promise to you and lied about coming soon. You did nothing wrong by leaving without him, especially since you arranged for his sister to drive him home. He owes you an apology. I found out my wife has a bank account that she's been keeping from me. To set the scene, I've been married to my wife for 10 years, and we have 2 sons who are 6 and 10. I work full-time, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom. Our eldest is in school, and our youngest is at home with her during the day. Financially, we do okay. There's no issue putting food on the table and paying bills, but we're not going on overseas holidays every year. Last night, I was looking at our joint bank account on the internet, and I noticed an unexpected transfer, about $100, so not huge. I thought this was odd and looked through the transaction history and saw that there's quite a few transfers to this account. There doesn't appear to be a pattern to the frequency or amount. I confronted my wife, and she eventually admitted that she has a separate bank account that she hasn't told me about. I wasn't happy about this, but what got me real upset was that she refused to show me the account on the internet, as I wanted to see how much was in it and what purchases she had made. I called her a liar and untrustworthy, which I probably shouldn't have. I went to bed without talking to her again. I got up early this morning to go to the gym while she was still asleep, which is normal for a Saturday. I went through her wallet and found her bank card. On the way home from the gym, I went to an ATM and I checked the balance. She uses the same PIN for everything. There was only a few $100s in the account. The ATM only provides the balance and doesn't show past transactions. This seemed to stack up because I would have noticed money missing from our joint account if she had saved up thousands. She also hasn't made any unexplained expensive purchases, no new jewelry or expensive clothes. Sometimes there would be something new in the house, like a plant or a new toy for the boys, which I didn't notice was purchased from our account, but I just figured she must have bought it as part of the grocery shop. What I can't work out is why she refused to show me the internet banking details. I feel like she's really trying to hide something, but I can't work out what it could possibly be. And I guess this is my main question to this group. Could it be that she simply prefers to have some independence? Or could it be something more serious? Thanks to everyone in advance for your comments. Edit. Firstly, I will apologize to my wife and give her freedom financially and work on being controlling. For what it's worth, I never would have come to this conclusion without seeing all these posts. Some of you here are ruthless. I wrote this post at night and then I went to bed. I wake up to a lot of messages saying how I'm a coward for staying silent. A lot of women that are completely financially dependent on their spouses are advised to have a secret emergency fund. I'm not touching on the ethics of it, but that could be the reason. Don't forget the ethics of him taking her debit card without permission. 100% his reaction to this is going to make or break their relationship. If he can put himself in her shoes and empathize with the labor she puts into raising their kids and the amount of financial dependence she has on him and his decisions around money, then they can probably work through it. But if he demands more, tells her to close the account, doesn't try to find a compromise for both of their security, then I'd be worried that this will cause cracks in their relationship that might be hard to work through. She'll feel justified and start saving money to leave him eventually, or she'll return to the workforce. You realize being a stay-at-home mom is one of the toughest jobs. If she wants to put a little money away, let her. It's likely she doesn't feel you value what she does for the family, and she's had to find ways to make herself feel valuable. I calculated what it would cost here in Chicago to have a person collectively do what my wife does. Childcare alone here would run us over $70,000 US, and that's not including our twins due in the fall. Them alone as newborns are almost the same amount. Add in a cleaning service and a private teacher, and we're well into the six figures. If she's hiding money, you likely messed up. She's not doing anything wrong. Weird that you demand to see it. I wonder why she has a secret bank account. Sounds like a smart woman to me. If someone had been secretly siphoning money from your bank account, you'd want to know how much and why. It's not his account, it's theirs. She's not breaking into the account like he did. Yes, it's their account, meaning she has no right to squirrel away money in secret. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
I just can't get over that whole $70,000 a year for childcare thing. Reddit boy, sometimes I'm so glad it's just us and the cats.
Would I be the jerk if I told my wife that her brother, wife, and baby cannot visit us for 2 weeks? My wife and I live in a seasonal tourist island in the Mediterranean in a small but beautiful Spanish stone finca on a large orchard. My wife doesn't work, and I have a seasonal business. From March to October, I work insane hours, average 12 hours a day, usually in split shifts with a siesta in the afternoon, where I usually come home, eat, have a power nap, then go back to work. This month, I will do even more hours than usual, as August is peak tourist season. On the upside, in the winter, I don't need to work, because I make all the money in this season, and my wife doesn't need to work at all. Due to my unusual schedule, and after my own family came to visit for 2 long weeks 4 years ago, I decided that having guests in our house for more than a week is just too much during the season. During the winter, I'm fine with it. My workload, plus having people staying that are on vacation, is just too much for me. I need my downtime or I burn out. A week I enjoy, but any more, I start getting frustrated and need my personal space back. My wife has some friends coming to stay the first week of September for 4 nights, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know these girls, and they're great fun, our kind of people, no problem. The other night, my wife said that her brother, his wife, and their toddler will come and stay the last 2 weeks of September, and I was a bit confused, as we had discussed our maximum 1-week strategy many times before. I said that I'd love to have them for a week, and reminded my wife that we already have guests a week before that. My wife starts to get upset with me, and says 10 days. I remind her that they also have an 18-month-old. Our house is far from child-friendly. We're child-free, and that it will just be too much for me right at the end of the season. She thinks I'm being a jerk because our brother needs a summer beach vacation and we haven't spent a lot of time with them since the baby was born, which is true. I do really like brother-in-law and his family, but also they don't really speak much English and I don't speak their language, so it takes even more energy to deal with that from my side. So Reddit, would I be the jerk for enforcing the 1-week stay rule, or should I cave and keep the peace to my own detriment? My wife is pretty upset with me about it. Bring on the judgment. You would not be the jerk. It's unfair of your wife to back out of your very reasonable agreement. She wants to prioritize her brother and his family over your needs and your previous agreement. Could you suggest that her brother still come, but not stay at your house? Or only stay at your house for a few days? Of course, this would be more expensive for him, but would allow him to vacation and for her to spend time with him and his family while still respecting your agreement and needs. Am I the jerk for hurting my friend's feelings at her engagement party? I never wanted kids, and neither did my husband. But life happened, and now we care for our 2 little nephews, who are 5-year-old twins. It was an easy decision for both of us. I'm not saying I regret anything, but it's not easy. especially with what they've been through. Many of our friends, many who are child-free, have been great. They're especially understanding to the fact that though we didn't give birth to them, we're now their parents and the kids are our first priority. They also understand that we can't hire babysitters or ask anyone else to watch the kids due to several reasons. We had to skip one wedding, and another couple allowed us to bring the boys to their originally child-free wedding. Both couples were happy, and there are no hard feelings between us. Now another friend is getting married, and she knows what's up as well. When we declined her invitation to her engagement party that would just be adults due to alcohol and other kinds of adult activities, she called me and begged me to come. I said I'd do my best. My husband and I decided that he would watch the kids on his own while I went. While I was getting ready, the boys were watching me and they started to cry because they realized I was going out. This caused me to be late. I apologized to her, and while she said it was okay, I could tell that she was slightly hurt. Regardless, I tried to have a good time with her and our other friends. I didn't drink with the rest of them, but she kept trying to get me to. Then my husband texted me a couple of hours in, saying one nephew is refusing to eat and the other is screaming. I stepped outside for 10 minutes to call them, and when the boys calmed down enough, I came back in. At this point, my friend looked angry. I had apparently missed a speech. She said I ruined the entire night by stressing her out with my attitude. She even accused me of thinking I was better than her because I'm a parent now and she isn't. I told her that's not true, and I didn't mean to ruin her night, but I'm sorry. She told me to buzz off and said something like, "It's a few hours. Those kids don't have to be on your mind all the time." And I was just going to leave, but I felt so insulted. I told her that she can't put her night being ruined on me, and I'm sorry she had a terrible night because I didn't drink and because I refused to forget about my kids for a couple hours. But her feelings being hurt is not my responsibility, and she can figure it out for herself. She started crying, and our friends kindly told me to just leave. While they all understood my position, they think I should apologize because it's her party and wedding, and I did hurt her after all. I haven't been thinking about this much, but I have some free time, and I just got a text from said friend telling me that I'm uninvited from her actual wedding. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You say your friends understand, even her, but they clearly don't, especially her. Someone being late to a party is not a reason for the host to be upset. Someone not drinking at a party is not a reason for the host to be upset. And stepping out for a few minutes is not a reason for her to be mad. Every friend that thinks you ruined her party and hurt her, they do not get it. They are the jerks. You owe none of them an apology, but you need to ask yourself if they still deserve a space in your life. That type of negativity is never needed, especially in your situation. My Karen coworker demands to know my husband's salary. My husband and I, who are both 33, have been together since we were in college. Over the years, he's had quite the career. He makes like 10 times what I do, and I make a good salary myself. As we've grown wealthier, I've learned that people become nosier. Friends, acquaintances, relatives, you name it. In the beginning, I would entertain the nosy questions, but since I turned 30, I've adopted a take no crap attitude. When people ask me how much he makes, I no longer say anything. I've learned the hard way that giving an exact number can have bad consequences. My coworker, who's 25, she's new, and she already has quite the reputation. She's very chatty, catty, gossipy, you get the gist. You can just tell that she craves wealth and status. She wears a bunch of flashy designer items and is always asking the ladies around the office which of the men are single. Last Friday, our office hosted an afternoon happy hour. She approached me and asked how me and my husband's recent vacation to Europe went. I told her it went well and briefly summarized what we did. Then the conversation went something like this. Her. So, what does your husband do? Me. He works in finance. Oh, wow. He must make a ton then to be taking you on all these lavish vacations. I hope you don't mind me asking, but how much does he make in a year? Me. Yes, we're very lucky that he makes a good salary. I give her a polite smile. Her. Oh, come on. I won't tell anyone. How much does he rake in a year? Millions? Me. Awkward chuckle. I'd rather not say, but it is up there. Her. What? He doesn't allow you to give an exact number or something? Me. Visibly annoyed. No, I just prefer not to say. She laughs in my face. You'd think the stuck-up one would be the one with the money, not the one without. Me. You should learn how to take no for an answer and when to quit being a nosy jerk. It's a valuable lesson. Then I smiled at her and just walked away. Later on, I had a few coworkers reach out to me and say that she was crying and left early and that I should apologize for calling her a rude name. I refused. I told my mom, and she said I was too rude to the new girl and that she's too young and might not fully understand salary talk. I think she's old enough. Husband is fully on my side, but said maybe I should fake apologize for the sake of office politics, which is something that I agree with. But still, am I the jerk? I know people like her, the type to find out it's millions and then they start sleazing all over your husband. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Report her to HR. She kind of low-key tried to get to know his salary so she can hang on him and be his girlfriend. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her coworker? Please let us know.
You're probably not the only person she tries to pull this crap on, and HR really needs to get a grip on this.
Ex-fiance wants to catch up after he left me at the altar. I'm 28, female. My ex-fiance, Derek, who's 32, disappeared the morning of our wedding 2 years ago, evading all attempts to reach him from myself and his family. It was devastating, absolutely soul-crushing. The event turned into a party to distract from the pain of the unknown. Afterwards, I returned to our apartment and I slept on the bathroom floor in my wedding dress. It was quite the ugly sight, to be honest. His mother ended up coming to the apartment when she informed me tearfully that Derek had run off with an ex of his. They had apparently reconnected a week prior to the wedding and he just couldn't go through with it, opting instead to rekindle his relationship with his ex. His family was horrified. I didn't hear from him until 3 months after he left. He called me, apologized, and then revealed that his ex had been hiding his kid from him that he had just found out about. He wanted to be with them. That's pretty much all that was said. I didn't say much. Actually, I think I only said hello. The whole situation left me numb. I just didn't care anymore. Thankfully though, my friends were and continue to be there for me. Through all of this, they've encouraged me to seek therapy and work on healing, which I'll be honest, was difficult. But after a year, I felt myself again. Which brings me to today. After this whole debacle and subsequent self-improvement/rebuilding, I moved to the UK, originally from Australia, for a change in scenery. Last night, I got a message request on Instagram. It was Derek. Hey, I've heard you moved to Wales. That's so cool. I'm traveling to Cardiff towards the end of July. I'm deeply sorry about everything, and I want to discuss what happened leading up to the wedding. I hope I'm not overwhelming you. Let me know if you'd like to talk over lunch. Firstly, no idea who told him about my move. Secondly, I don't know if I crave closure from him, but I also don't want to decide to decline to only later on regret my decision. So I turned to you strangers of the internet. What should I think about before reaching a decision? Would it be wise to decline, or should I humor him and listen to his reasons? I learned that an old mutual friend of ours revealed where I moved, and evidently, he's been stressing that he needs to tell me something. For the time being, I've decided to simply ignore his message and work through any emerging feelings with my therapist. Update. So as I mentioned previously, I did not respond to his message. A day after, however, I received another message from him, which I won't write out in its entirety. To sum it up for you all though, he apologized for how disingenuous his initial message was and explained why he'd reached out to me. Essentially, he wanted to discuss that week, that final week before our wedding and the events that led up to him dipping out. Now I will refrain from entirely delving into my ex and I's past, but my ex-fiance was diagnosed with PTSD and avoidant attributions from past experiences. His diagnosis did provide quite a bit of clarity looking back at our relationship and his past behavior, so I truly feel for him in his journey of self-healing. However, despite his struggles, I still told him that I couldn't forgive him for what he had put me through. He said he understood. Now, some of you will be quite mad with me, but I ultimately agreed to meet him for lunch, and I do not regret it. He's not with his ex. Actually, she passed 6 months after he left me at the altar, which is part of the reason why she reached out to him in the first place. Since then, he's been working on himself through therapy and navigating single fatherhood. Yes, the baby was his. The lunch wasn't too long, but it was all around cathartic on both sides. At the end of the lunch, he handed me an envelope which contained all the money we spent preparing for the wedding. Honestly, I was dumbfounded. It wasn't a gesture I was expecting on his behalf, and I think he was taken aback when I returned the ring he gave me. I held on to the ring just in case I needed to sell it if my finances continued to be unstable, but I never had to. Ironic that in the end, I did receive money while seemingly trading that ring. He looks better, and not to toot my horn, but I feel I do as well. Now that chapter has concluded, and I no longer feel rage or remorse. I feel free. I feared that I might have harbored feelings for him, but I have since found that I loved him for the man he was in that moment when we were together. And though we're now apart, I'm okay with looking back and acknowledging the love I had for him. I've closed that chapter now. Thank you all so much. Any advice on what I should spend the money on? This is a great case where her ex would have garnered a lot more sympathy if he had communicated. All he had to do was say, I just found out my ex hid a kid from me for years. We need to hold off on getting married until I sort this out. Boom! Relationship hope is kept alive, and you don't completely do over the person you're supposed to marry. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my wife due to her social media usage? My wife, who's 34, and I, am 32, have been happily married now for 8 years. We have 2 kids who are 6 and 4. Until recently, we've been able to effectively divide our household chores and parenting duties equally. About 6 months ago, my wife's TikTok and Instagram algorithms started showing her content that's primarily been involving the criticism of men, particularly in terms of their contributions to marriages, parenting, and chores. I'm all for constructive decisions about gender roles and stuff like that, but the content I've seen from her account takes it to an extreme, stereotyping us as lazy and neglectful. In the past few weeks, my wife began posting her own content about our personal life, portraying me as a negligent and uncaring husband and father who doesn't pull his weight around the house. I was really hurt when I saw these posts on our account, particularly because she has close friends and family members on both sides who follow her account and are reaching out to me asking if everything's okay in our marriage now that she's posting her own content and not just reposting other videos she finds. Not only was her content way inaccurate, but I feel uncomfortable opening up these elements of my personal life to all of our friends and family, let alone strangers who have found themselves engaging as well. I attempted to discuss this with her. She just shrugged it off and accused me of being insensitive to her struggles and not understanding her need for an outlet to vent. I completely lost my patience in front of the kids. I told her she was being a total keyboard warrior, more interested in getting clout from toxic people online than the reality of our life. I also told her she was being an ungrateful jerk and spreading lies about me and our marriage. As soon as I called her a jerk and seeing her reaction to what I was saying, as well as hearing my daughter started to cry, I regretted it. She looked more sad than angry with what I was saying, and she just sort of shut down and hasn't spoken to me since, outside of very minimal conversations about breakfast or plans for the kids. I feel like I have a right to be upset about what she's saying on social media, but I think I took it way too far. I really don't know how to approach the rest of the discussion we obviously need to have. Update. I'm pretty sure my marriage is over. I don't know. I sat her down to talk to her about it again, this time away from the kids and a lot more confident that I was going to keep my cool. I prefaced the conversation by saying I didn't want this to be an argument. I just wanted to get to the bottom of this behavior and wanted to explain how it was affecting me and how other people view me. Pretty much the moment I began talking, she shut me down. And I don't know if what she did is gaslighting or if she's having some sort of mental break, or maybe a wizard came and magically hypnotized me for the past several months, and I'm just now coming out of it. Basically, she said that everything she's saying on social media is true, and that I have no right to police what she does or says online. I decided my best course of action would be to try to challenge her on the everything I'm saying is true part by breaking down the chores for her and showing the division of labor. This is how she responded to all of it. Me taking the kids to and from school. Wow, you sit in a car for an hour. Great job, Dad. Me cooking dinner. Cooking is your favorite thing to do, so it's not really work. Me doing dishes afterwards. Oh, you clean up after yourself? Do you want a cookie? Me doing the lawn duties. So, you spend an hour away from the kids every weekend. Next. Me doing laundry. This is also the bare minimum. It was at this point that I noticed how everything I'm doing is the bare minimum and expected of me, while she expects to be treated like a hero and a martyr for doing her chores. I found this to be highly transactional and adversarial for really no reason. I asked her why she was only bringing this up now instead of communicating with me, and she didn't have a real answer. Something to the effect of, "It's not my job to teach you things you should already know," which I'm paraphrasing, but the discussion really got me heated at this point. The discussion had spiraled completely out of control, and she started to pound on the table, and at one point, she threw her mug into the sink so hard that it broke. Things had gotten completely unproductive, so I went to go wake the kids up from their nap and take them to a friend's house for the day for things to calm down. When I walked out into the hallway, she came around the corner screaming that I guess because I was taking the kids out for the day, that I'm weaponizing them and manipulating the situation to make her seem crazy. I don't even remember the small details of what happened next. I just got them in the car and we left. I went to my friend's house, who already knew everything that was going on. I just stayed there for a bit while the kids played with his dog in the backyard. I'm just done now. Barring a serious neurological disease causing the issue, there's no conversation that I can have with her that will allow me to get past all of this. My friend agrees with me. My marriage is over. I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow, and I'm going to go as low contact as I possibly can to get this all over with and move on with my life. That's all I can do now. My brother-in-law tried to get me fired, so I ruined his wedding photos. This actually happened about 4 years ago. At the time, I was married to my now ex-wife. Her sister, Alice, was getting married to Roger, but let's backtrack a bit so I can set the scene. I've had a storied past with Roger, and we did not care for each other in the least. To put it mildly, he's a compulsive liar, a mooch, and a cheat. He had pretty much alienated Alice from most of her friends and family. He and I had a falling out over all of this, where I called him out on his BS. In revenge, he said a lot of really horrible lies about me to the family, and has done his best to try and get me fired from my job, as well as some other things that I can't discuss. He's just evil. As a result, we had to pay a lawyer to send him a cease and desist letter, and we went no contact with either of them. I wouldn't even be in the same building with him for any reason, including birthdays, Christmas, etc. After a few years, I was still no contact with either of them. My wife would talk to her sister occasionally, which didn't really bother me, but I came under a lot of pressure from my in-laws to normalize things somewhat. You know, for the good of the family. Now, I got along great with my in-laws, and it was really important to them, so I gave it a shot. I would basically be at an event with them, but wouldn't socialize or engage with either of them. A few months later, they announced their engagement and began planning the wedding. My wife was to be the maid of honor, and our kids, who are 6 and 4, would be flower girl and ring bearer. Now, I was absolutely not in the wedding party. This you must understand, and I was perfectly okay with that. As the wedding continues, I get word that Roger would like to buy me a suit as his way of making amends, and so I wouldn't have to pack a suit of my own. I had plenty of suits, so this was a really odd request, but he comes from some money and said that it was his way of trying to make amends for everything he's put me through. Whatever, fine, I'll go along. I sent my measurements over along with my son's for the wedding planner. The wedding was in a different state, so I wouldn't be able to see the suit until we picked it up a day before the wedding. This concerned me, along with his insistence that I wouldn't have to bring a suit, so I packed my own suit as well. A nice charcoal gray two-piece with a white shirt and a blue tie. We fly into the state, check into our hotel, and I head to pick up the suits along with my son and father-in-law, also not in the wedding party, but also getting a suit. Turns out Roger hadn't bought us suits, but had actually rented us the same cream-colored tuxedos as his side of the wedding party, basically trying to dress us up like the groomsmen despite not being in the wedding. I immediately saw why he didn't want me to pack a suit and had a good laugh at it, but said nothing and let him think he got one over on me. My wife also found this quite hilarious, and there we formulated our plan. The day of the wedding, everyone got dolled up in their wedding kits, champagne dresses and cream tuxedos, and me in my charcoal gray suit. When Roger saw me, he was cordial, but looked a bit irked. I found out through the grapevine he was absolutely livid I didn't wear the tux, which frankly made my day. Now for the absolute best part, and cue the petty revenge. The pictures. Because I was close family, I was included in a lot of pictures by default, but my wife, bless her heart, made a point of pulling me into almost every picture she was able to. When the pictures came back, it was amazing. In at least 60% of the pictures, I was in there somewhere and stood out like a sore thumb. 8 to 10 people, all dressed the same in cream and white, and me in my almost black suit. Alice was so beyond upset, she had a near meltdown and insisted that everyone get together to retake the pictures right away, which of course didn't happen as this was 3 months after the wedding. So yeah, enjoy your wedding album with its almost perfect color scheme and coordination. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that I would be perfectly capable of doing what she does? I, 30 male, have a wife who's also 30, and we have a daughter who's 7. I work in finance, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom as I earn sufficient for the both of us. My wife is a great stay-at-home mom and takes great care of our house. I was lucky to buy a home as I earn well in a medium cost of living city. I love my wife, but she finds it humorous to say that I'm incapable of doing household tasks. We had agreed that she would do them when we decided she would be a stay-at-home mom, but I do stuff occasionally when we're both home if she asks me to. But then if I, say, load the dishwasher for her, she will claim I did it wrong just because I do it differently than she does. It still cleans well. The other day we were eating, and she told me about her day and how she went grocery shopping and optimized the cost by buying specific items at specific stores and accounting for the cost of traveling to each store and she made an offhanded remark that I would never be able to do that, and said it in a "what would you ever do without me" kind of way. I replied back saying that of course I could do it. I handle complex decisions and calculations at my work as I work in finance, and that I have a master's degree, and what I do involves more intellect than household operations. Even though I acknowledged and appreciated what she does, I would be capable if the roles were reversed. She got angry and seemed to think I was calling her stupid when I wasn't, and then cried, and now I feel like I'm the jerk. She said she was a very good student, and had she graduated, she would be in my position as well. My wife and I met in college, but she was an international student studying physics and computer science, and she had issues with her loan from her home country and could not afford to complete it, and we got married then so she could stay. Initially, she wanted to complete it later after finding the funds, but she agreed to be a stay-at-home mom when I got a good job, and I appreciate that a lot, as we were able to have a kid early on, even while I was both completing my master's and working full-time. You're the jerk. Your wife is a very smart woman who probably prepared her whole life for a challenging technical career, and now for better or worse, she's a stay-at-home mom with no degree or a paying job. It's clear that you are proud of your intellectual capabilities and the complex task that you tackle at work. It is part of your identity and your ego. Your wife has none of that, even though that's what she wanted. What little source of pride she has, her household tasks, her own spouse diminishes and minimizes. How would that make you feel if you were in her shoes? Would you consider supporting your wife to finish her degree? Female employee is eating meals alone with my husband and is avoiding me. Treats me coldly, is super sweet to my husband. My husband, who's 55, and I, female 55, have been married for 29 years. We own a business that's run by a manager, female 58, who lives nearby and has been with us for 2 years. As owners of this business, my husband and I are on site together, and sometimes my husband is there alone, and sometimes I'm there alone. This business is 5 hours away from where we live. It's hospitality, so we have to be there during high season to help out, but not always. I usually stay home to take care of our kids while my husband commutes back and forth. Our manager, I'll call her Sue, is great at her job and we both get along with her well. It's a very professional relationship. Sue is single. My husband and I usually make our own meals and eat on site in the employee kitchen. It's the only kitchen on site. A lot of times our manager is there when I'm cooking food and I invite her to eat with us, as I make plenty. For the past year, she's been happy to do this. It also gives us a chance to talk to her about the business. Then we get a lot of work done over dinner. This happens maybe 3 to 4 times a month. Also, this past year, we've gotten to know her really well, and she loves food and is not picky with food. Whenever we go out to eat and have leftovers, we offer her the food, and she enjoys getting food from us anytime. Lately, I've noticed a difference in Sue. She seems cold to me, but not my husband. I thought maybe I was imagining it, but 3 months ago, I was making food and invited her to eat with us. She declined, saying she didn't want to eat all of our food and that she had brought her lunch and she preferred to eat on the go while working. I told her no problem and that was that. I asked her again when we ordered pizza the next day. It's her favorite, and she declined. Oh well, no problem. A couple of days later, I tried to include her and she declined, saying she wasn't hungry. A month ago, my husband was working a week-long stint alone. He calls me and says that he and Sue ate takeout barbecue for lunch together. Okay. Then a couple of days later, he sends me a picture of a plate of food and a yummy dessert that she cooked and brought him from home. Also, he cooked stuffed pepper I left him and made one for her. She ate it. And now a week later, she brings cake for my husband's birthday. I asked her if she would like a burger with us. She says no. I worked alone a week with her and invited her to enjoy some barbecue. She declined. All week she declined. I confronted her and asked why she feels comfortable eating with my husband only and not me. She claims nothing's wrong, but won't look me in the eyes. Now she's cold and avoids me. It just feels weird. Help. You need to bring this up with your husband. He has to carefully build up professional boundaries and stop sharing meals with Sue. But you don't need to confront her about it anymore. Sue is not doing anything wrong at the moment. Declining to share food with you is her right, even if she later on shares food with your husband. Just your husband has to set the precedent where he doesn't share meals with her anymore. Smug Karen takes my car keys because I can't possibly be the owner. Earns herself a ride in the back seat of one of our county's finest. This is just a throwaway because I don't care to stick around for long. But this incident was so stupid that I can't really help but share the story since my friends keep telling me to. What I find most weird about this is that my car wasn't anything super special. It was just a yellow '09 V6 Chevy Camaro with black stripes. When I bought it, it was super cheap because the passenger side door had been smashed in somehow, and there was already 130,000 miles on the odometer. But the title was still good somehow. No idea why, nor do I really care. It was sold to me via a proxy. All I know was the car looked like a good deal, so I bought it. A friend of mine who works in auto body fixed it for me. He said that the most damage was done to the door itself, and I just needed a new door, and after he made a few tweaks to make sure everything was straight. Together, we managed to find a door at a salvage yard that was the same color. A little work, and the car looked almost new, and it became my fun ride to commute to work or drive around when I didn't feel like using my other car. I didn't do any modifications to it. I'm not one of those guys that's into speed or crazy mods. I liked the car because it looked cool and the gas mileage wasn't so bad with the V6. In fact, I wanted a V6 Camaro because I heard that they're usually in better condition than the ones with a V8 because people drive the V6 more for looks than power and don't gas it as much. I drove that Camaro for a year before running into a random Karen at a supermarket last year in September. Those places tend to draw Karens in regularly, especially in the state that I live in. I've seen many Karens, but was lucky to hardly ever be noticed by them. I was shopping for some stuff to make dinner and was about to head home when I found the Karen with her son all over my car after exiting the store. I'm guessing the kid was around 4 years old, and his mother was taking pictures of him sitting on my hood while the kid kept smiling and gleefully saying, "Bumblebee." Yes, I understand the reference and I've heard it all before. I don't like people messing with my property, and I told the kid to get off. The Karen took one look at me and told me to mind my own business. Now I'm 29, male, but I have a bit of a baby face, and my casual clothing made me look like a teenager. So I guess to her, I couldn't have been someone who would have anything to do with such a nice car. That's actually a pretty common car. I told the Karen to get off my Camaro, and she bluntly told me that there was no way it was my car because I'm too young. I pulled out my keys and hit the alarm button on the remote. That made the alarm start blaring for a second, and her kid jumped off while screaming and crying because I'd frightened him. But rather than pay attention to her crying kid, the Karen came running at me full speed and managed to shove me hard enough that I fell over. The next part is a bit hazy. I got a bump on the head, and that crazy Karen just started screaming at me. She stepped on my arm and pulled the keys from my hand before I really had a chance to react. Though she didn't really hurt me much. She was not very big, only around 5'2" or so, and a twig, while I'm over 6 feet and 170 pounds. When I got to my feet, she was comforting her crying kid and telling him that I was a mean person. I told her to return my keys, but she got hissy and said that there was no way the Camaro was mine. I again stated it was, and I would only give her one more chance to return my keys. She didn't. Instead, she handed them to her kid, who proceeded to start playing with the buttons on the remote and unlock the doors. I had enough and got my phone out to call the police. When the Karen saw I was on the phone, she started screaming and charging at me again. Though this time I easily dodged her and she nearly fell on the asphalt and screamed that I had attacked her. I never even touched her and said as much out loud. The 911 operator was listening to everything that was going on, and I quickly told her where we were while this insane woman was still screaming at me. And 2 cop cars had shown up before long. At this point, the Karen had locked herself in my car with her son and started the engine to run the AC. I explained everything to the police, and they knocked on the window of my Camaro to get the Karen to open it and give them her side of the story. She claimed the car to be hers and that I was just some stupid broke teenager that had tried to take it, then bragged that she had taken me down. The officer asked if that meant she had shoved me over, to which she bluntly said yes. I told the police to look in my glove compartment. In there was my insurance card and a copy of my registration, and they could compare the name on my license. When the Karen heard that, she got out of the car and finally admitted that it wasn't hers, but then said there was no way it could be mine, and that she just took the keys from me to find the real owner. That quickly earned her some shiny new bracelets, and she was screaming into the back of a police car. The parking lot had cameras, so it was easy to prove the attack. Though I only really got scratches, a bruise on my arm where she had stepped on it, and a small bump on my head. After the Karen was taken back to the station, they found out that she was on something, which explains why she was so nuts. I of course pressed charges, though my testimony wasn't really needed since the police had both CCTV from the parking lot and the audio from my phone call. It turned out to be the Karen's third offense, and she got 2 years in prison. Oh, and her kid was taken from her. The whole incident made me rethink owning the Camaro because it had been a magnet for people that bothered me a lot, so I sold it. Basically, I got everything back I had into it anyway, so I broke even. I doubt I'll want to own another sports car again. Edit. I know that the Karen lost her son because of social media. I found out who she was and looked into her social media profile. She had already blogged her woes, calling me a monster because the authorities took her kid over a little misunderstanding. I don't know about the rest of you, but if the authorities took the kid that fast, she was already on their watch list. And I know she was on something because it was mentioned in court. My testimony wasn't needed, but that didn't mean I wasn't there to watch. I took time off work just to go. She gave me a death glare when she was sentenced. Edit 2. Yes, people, there is an '09 Camaro. It was the first year of that generation, and the car that was actually used in the first Michael Bay Transformers movie. Edit 3. Seems I'm more mistaken than I thought. My memory is not that good since I sincerely thought my Camaro was an '09, but it was just actually bought in '09 and was listed as a 2010 since model years are always ahead of actual years. I gave my friend who worked on the car for me a call, and sure enough, he says it was a 2010, and even told me he thought it was weird I figured it was an '09. I'm so confused. But then again, some of the people I know couldn't even remember what year their car was half the time anyway, and I sold the car pretty much right after the Karen incident and tried to forget as much as possible. I feel like a complete idiot, so I'd at least like to thank everyone who called me out on that. I would also like to address one more thing. Many here are talking about how risky it was that I had a bump on the back of my head when the Karen knocked me over. You're not wrong that I probably should have gotten it looked into, but growing up, I was getting hurt with all the other kids all the time. Bumps on the head happened a lot, and we just powered through it. I guess I figured that day was no different. Those calling this story fake, I really don't blame you. It would sound fake to me if it didn't actually happen to me. It's actually stupid how often Karens make a fuss over other people's stuff, cars being one of them. I didn't even really want to post here, but my friends wouldn't leave me alone about wanting to post on Reddit since it happened. And seeing how many similar stories there are, I find that Karens trying to take other people's cars is entirely too common these days. I mean, before the whole Karen thing became a meme, I didn't hear of any of this crap happening at all, unless it was related to some sort of crime. It's almost like now that the internet has exposed them, Karens have just decided they didn't need to hide what they are anymore. Either way, I hope this sort of situation never repeats with me because it was enough. Speaking of cars, if you could have any car in the world, which would you choose? Please let us know.
How about a green '98 Saturn with windows that don't roll down? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Am I the jerk for giving the family heirloom to my fiance instead of my daughter? I, 36 male, have a 16-year-old daughter named Jane. Jane is a great kid and was really close to her mom until she passed a year ago. My mother gave one piece of her jewelry to her kids before she passed. I was given her engagement ring. I've been planning a proposal to my girlfriend, Laura, who's 30, for about 6 months now. Jane is from my previous relationship. Her mother and I were never married. I've been dating Laura for about 5 years. I told Jane I was going to propose. She was happy about it and asked to see the ring. I told her I'd be using my mother's ring, and Jane looked upset, so I asked her what was wrong. She said she had assumed the ring would be hers since she's my daughter. I explained the ring was given to me and there are other heirlooms, small items like rosary beads that she can have. For clarification, I do have the money to buy a ring, but the sentimental value of this ring is why I wanted to use it. Laura also helped us take care of our mom while she was sick and they were close. I proposed to Laura with the ring and she said yes. After this happened, Jane cried to her uncle, my brother, about it, and he understands both points. His wife thinks I'm the jerk, so do some other family members. I obviously can't take it back from Laura when I've already proposed. Am I the jerk? Edit. The ring was given to me, not Jane. Laura has known my mother her whole life. Our mothers are best friends and have been hinting we should get married as long as I can remember. Update. My daughter and brother decided to call my father to come to my house and talk to me. Laura was out to dinner with her friends. My daughter and brother explained to my father their thoughts on the situation. I stayed quiet while they explained their point so my father could really hear what my daughter was saying and so I could also hear her out. My father is a Marine veteran and very blunt. My father stopped them and said he's heard enough. He said my mother would have wanted Laura to have the ring and Jane isn't showing the maturity to receive an heirloom right now. He told her he's disappointed in her entitlement and that she needed to get her attitude in check by his next visit. He also reminded everyone Laura's been family for years, even before we were together, even if it's not by blood. My daughter said yes sir and isn't happy about the outcome, but accepts my father's saying this is what my mother wanted. After reading all of your comments, you're the jerk. Of course, you can speak to your fiance and tell her that you hurt your kid's feelings and made a mistake. You communicate with her and buy her a new ring. Before reading your comments, I was like, not the jerk. Your daughter's feelings are valid. It's a family heirloom. But you are correct too. It's your ring. Your fiance was close to your mother. But your comments made it clear that you're the jerk. He's trying to justify his actions because OP thought he would come on here and everybody would be on his side, only to find out that it seems like 95% of the people here think he's the jerk. I'm actually surprised and glad that people are calling him the jerk. I expected every comment to be like, not the jerk, she's not entitled to it. You're the jerk. The ring should have been Jane's. Find out if Laura would accept an exact duplicate of the ring and exchange that for the heirloom for Jane. Otherwise, I predict you will have a very unhappy daughter who will resent both you and her future stepmother for a long time. If I were Jane, I too would be deeply hurt that a ring that belonged to my grandmother was given to a non-blood relative. If the ring should have been Jane's, then her grandmother should have given it to Jane. But she didn't. She gave Jane something else and gave the ring to her son. Jane isn't entitled to something just because she wants it. You're the jerk. How does a 5-year relationship, mother of an SO, become more important than a 16-year bond with a grandma? Sentimental jewelry is typically passed down from generation to generation, and you basically skipped over your daughter. Doing this soon after your mother's passing makes you an even bigger jerk. There was no reason you couldn't have just bought her a different ring instead of one with sentimental value to your daughter. This decision has certainly injured your relationship with your daughter, perhaps beyond repair, as you've made sure she will resent you and your fiancé. Don't be surprised if in 2 years she moves out on her birthday and goes no contact with you. ETA. Just read your comments about planning to have more kids with your significant other. You have essentially picked your significant other of 5 years over your daughter and plan to have kids that will go on to inherit a piece of jewelry that means so much to your daughter. If you do actually wind up having more kids, don't count on your daughter wanting anything to do with them because she will likely resent them as being the proof you chose a potential family with your significant other over your existing family. Second ETA. OP has clearly been doing some damage control. A few things I would like to clear up for new viewers. OP didn't mention jack about Laura and him growing up together or their moms being best friends until after I made my initial post. The relationship between the significant other and one's kid is completely different than one with the child of a family friend. OP only vaguely mentioned Laura helped care for his mom without giving any other details. Nowhere in his original post or comments did OP say anything about his mom insisting that he proposed to Laura while on her deathbed. OP said his daughter asked him not to propose with her grandmother's engagement ring and he did it anyway. He completely disregarded the feelings of his daughter, even though he could afford to buy Laura an engagement ring without breaking the bank. Legally, OP did have the right to do what he did, but morally, he was a major jerk. Karen demands to use my computer even though there was another one right next to me. My girlfriend, who's 34, and I, 31, we work in the same company and on the same job for the same department, but in different offices. I work downstairs and she works upstairs. I've had a very tough couple of weeks with 2 times the workload and half the staff working with me on my customers, while her customers are all on vacation and there's not much for her to do at the moment. She came downstairs yesterday to search for a document she needed. She found the document and asked to use my computer to check for something. I would have had to pause my job, log out, she would log in, check her thing. It would take about 5 minutes. I told her there's a computer next to mine which nobody's using and she can use that one. She then told me she never used it before and it takes too long to sync, about 5 to 10 minutes. I told her I was busy and that she could hang out with me while waiting and it would be fun. We could talk and I could still finish my critical tasks while she's waiting for hers to sync. Her eyes got watery and she walked away. I explained to her via chat how it came out bad, but the idea still stands. Why should I pause when there's a perfectly good computer next to me? Am I the jerk? She blocked me on everything except my number and says vile things to me. I asked her to focus on moving on because it's such a small thing and she makes it out to be a life-changing experience. For lunch, she asked me what I wanted and she brought it to me. I thought all was well until she completely ignored me while we ate, and when I was finished, I thanked her and made small talk with her, but she just told me to go away. Side note, 2 women from IT and HR came up to me and thanked me for an ad clip that I had recently worked on. They told me good job and asked to see the clips after lunch. She then blamed me for being too good to others and not to her. She then ended up leaving me at work even though we had ridden there together and I was depending on her for a ride home. I was upset, but decided to go ahead and rent a car so I could get home. At least I got to rent this car for the first time. It was a Bolt and I had never driven one before. When I got home, I cooked us a meal, which she completely ignored. She ate random stuff from the fridge instead. I didn't make any talk with her, neither did she. She then continued to watch Grey's Anatomy until midnight. I went to bed at 21:30 because it's been tough and I'm tired from work. Also, I didn't want to argue because it just wears me out. Help me out. Am I really the jerk? Not the jerk. Your girlfriend needs to get better at handling your working and personal relationship. Your response regarding the computer was a very reasonable one. The silent treatment sucks, and I wouldn't want to live with someone like that. She's sulking because she didn't get what she wanted. Going silent treatment or throwing around names? How old is she? If she's an adult, that's not acceptable behavior. Not the jerk.
Never stay in a relationship with someone who treats you like this. Immature, toxic people make the worst partners you could ever ask for.
Am I the jerk for not allowing my stepson, who's 12, to live with us? I have 2 sons who are 10 and 5, and I'm getting married in the next couple of weeks to my boyfriend who has a 12-year-old son from a previous relationship. My future husband's son asked his dad if he could come live with us after we get married because he wants to experience a genuine family dynamic with parents and siblings, given that his biological parents never married anyone else. My husband is on board with this idea, believing it would contribute positively to the boy's personal growth. I expressed to my husband that I have reservations about having him live with us based on observations during the weekends he spends at our house. Firstly, he appears to have a strained relationship with my younger son. He rarely includes him in activities unless I specifically ask him to do so. When we're at the park and I ask him to accompany my other son to the restroom for safety reasons, he gets an attitude about it. Secondly, he displays an excessive competitive streak towards my older son. He consistently aims to outperform him and even taunts him when he succeeds. I find this overly competitive atmosphere uncomfortable. I desire my kids to grow up in a nurturing and supportive environment. The third and most significant concern is his academic and behavioral performance. My boyfriend has informed me that his son has been struggling academically and has faced minor behavioral challenges. I'm concerned about his potential negative influence on my kids, particularly my older one. My husband dismisses these concerns as typical for his age, believing that with guidance he can improve. I sought advice from my mother, and she disagrees with me, asserting that providing a united family environment could greatly benefit my stepson. Both of them labeled my reasons as unreasonable. Am I the jerk? Update. I know that I'm not the best person, but I've never mistreated or ignored him. I care for him. I realize now that I was being overly protective of my own kids and not considering things from my future stepson's perspective. Moreover, as a responsible adult, I understand that I have an obligation to help him with behavior and school grades. I talked to my boyfriend and I accept that he can live with us. Now we'll need to move to a new house so that each kid can have their own room, and we'll have to work on getting custody. You're the jerk. You're marrying his father, so you should start considering him as your son as well. If your oldest son starts displaying all these behaviors, then surely you wouldn't just kick him out and give up on him. I would get your boyfriend on board with ways to deal with the behaviors that you're not happy with. You're the jerk. He's your soon-to-be husband's son. He's just as entitled to live under that roof as your kids are. End of story. I cannot believe this is real. You're the jerk. Seems like you fully expect your fiancé to be a father figure to your kids, but you have no interest in being a mother to his. What would your reaction be if your fiancé didn't want your boys living with y'all after marriage? Would it be a deal breaker? Would you consider it? Remember, it's what you're asking from him. You seem very selfish and like you want your idea of the perfect family, which doesn't include stepson. You should look for a partner without kids. You're denying me service? Yes. Our hotel, a 126-room business establishment in northern Minnesota, is completely booked. A significant corporate event with a substantial turnout of around 80 attendees has reserved the majority of our rooms, leaving only 10 available. Unfortunately, these remaining rooms were also claimed by construction workers. Regrettably, many of them exhibit a tendency to react strongly to various situations, often overreacting and seem to enjoy asserting their dominance in confrontations. Among these individuals is Gary, who stands out for being particularly difficult to deal with. On this occasion, Gary approached the front desk with the intention of checking in.
Hello, I'd like to check in,
he stated. Certainly. Could you show me your ID, please?
That won't be necessary.
I allowed a brief pause before responding. Actually, I do need to see your ID.
No, you really don't. I've been staying here for months. Showing my ID isn't necessary.
I understand your point, but it's our policy to request an ID from all guests.
Well, nobody else bothers with it,
he argued. They might not be following proper procedures. Please provide your ID. Gary, expressing his frustration, continued.
I'm not going to show you my ID.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to provide you with your room key unless I see it.
So, you're denying me service simply because I won't show you my ID?
Yes, that's correct. In response, Gary sighed heavily and launched into a tirade. However, I remained unaffected by the outburst of this middle-aged man.
Others never ask for my ID.
Sir, even if someone as significant as Jesus himself walked in here, I'd still require a government-issued ID card. So, if you wouldn't mind showing me yours. Reluctantly, Gary relented and reached for his wallet. I promptly accessed his reservation details and proceeded. Thank you. Now could you kindly swipe or insert your card here?
I'm not going to do that. Nobody else has ever asked me to.
This could be due to improper practices elsewhere, but we follow our procedures diligently.
Your insistence seems more about your ego than anything else,
Gary said. I have no need to bolster my ego. However, it's essential for you to complete the card process.
Why is it necessary?
In case there's a dispute regarding the charges, having your authorization on record helps us combat fraudulent activity.
Are you implying that I'm a fraud?
No, not at all. But if you could just swipe or insert your card, we'd really appreciate it.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not concerned about helping your establishment.
My responsibility is to ensure that you follow the required procedure, I said.
Well, I'm not going to comply,
he maintained. In that case, I'm afraid I can't give you access to your room.
Isn't it your job to satisfy customers? Because I'm definitely not satisfied.
While I aim to provide a satisfactory experience, compliance with necessary steps is part of that process.
Just call your manager,
he said. I don't believe that's necessary.
I won't give you my card.
Then unfortunately, I can't provide you with your room key. Have a pleasant evening. As I turned away, the unexpected happened. Gary produced his card and completed the required transaction. With the payment confirmed, I handed him his keys and offered a courteous smile. Enjoy your stay.
You're quite a stickler, you know that?
He criticized. I'm here to ensure a respectful environment. If you engage in any of this mistreatment towards me or my colleagues, I will be compelled to involve the authorities. This is your only warning. Have a good night, I cautioned. Gary started to retort, but upon noticing my actions, he seemed to think better of it and walked away, mumbling at me. Interestingly, his supervisor entered the lobby just 10 minutes later and was displeased by the feedback I provided regarding Gary's behavior. Update. Upon arriving at work today, I picked up a half shift to assist my coworker on a particular busy day. Before my supervisor departed, he mentioned, "Oh, by the way, we no longer offer that construction company rate, and their employees are prohibited from staying on our premises. Remember Gary, your friend? He was involved in 3 separate altercations with our staff yesterday, which led the management to terminate their contract for discounted stays and expel them from our establishment." So there you have it. While I'm not entirely sure of the complete story, I'll provide an update once I find out. Update. Gary's day had commenced with him demanding that our recently hired auditors furnish him with a receipt showing a zero balance before completing the audit process. They were unfamiliar with such a procedure, and Gary proceeded to express his anger towards them. On that same morning, our newly appointed general manager convened a meeting with the sales team to discuss raising the rates for the construction company, given their employees' history of problematic behavior. Additionally, the team mentioned the unsettling treatment their one female colleague at the front desk had been subjected to by the company's employees. Instances included inquiries about her shifts, remarks about her car, and probing questions about her availability. The sales team informed the company's representative that their rates would double and cautioned them about standing on thin ice. Any further incidents would result in the contract being voided, leading to the loss of the discount and a ban from our establishment. Approximately 20 minutes later, Gary stormed downstairs and vented his frustration at my coworker. The new GM subsequently gave the company 30 minutes to vacate our premises and terminated their contract. Am I the jerk for saying I don't like my friend's boyfriend, which caused him to lose a job opportunity? I, 27, have a friend, Natalie, who has a boyfriend, Jamie. Jamie is a complete jerk. He's one of those people who makes below-the-belt jokes and then calls you sensitive if you don't find it funny. In fact, in the 18 months I've known him, he's insulted Natalie to her face too many times to count. He's called many of our mutual friends rude and demeaning things and has purposefully antagonized me on many occasions. We all put up with him because if we don't, we'd never see Natalie, but he really is the butt of every joke and a walking cliche. My roommate Harry recently had a job come up with his company that Natalie asked him to interview Jamie for. Harry is part of our wider friendship group. His friend is dating one of the girls in our group and has met Jamie but not really spent much time with him, so thought he was an alright guy. I decided to keep out of it because I know Jamie has been unemployed for a while and it's really affected Natalie. However, when Harry mentioned he was going to do the interview at our apartment, he could see I was uncomfortable. I didn't mention anywhere near the extent of Jamie's behavior, just said he had made a couple of demeaning remarks to and about me, and I wasn't overly keen on being around him. I told Harry not to do anything about this and that he should hire the best person for the job. Harry went through with the interview, but he made Jamie do a lot of prep work and a presentation to other employees, and then made the interview extremely long for no reason. Then at the end, he said he wasn't going to hire him. Jamie got mad at Natalie over it, and she got mad at me, saying that I shouldn't have said anything about Jamie, knowing how great the job would be and how hard it is to get jobs in the field. On top of that, I should have been sensitive to his unemployment and that I'm ignoring how difficult the job market is. She's now not speaking to me and our friends are divided. Two think I shouldn't have said anything because Jamie really needs the work and ultimately it would have been helping Natalie. One friend thinks it's fair that I express not wanting Jamie in my home and that I owed it to Harry to tell him because Jamie is an HR problem waiting to happen. On the one hand, yes, his off-the-clock behavior shouldn't cost Jamie a job. But on the other hand, why should I have to cover up for the way Jamie is? If honesty makes him look bad, then maybe that's his problem. Then again, I guess it was kind of petty and it had real-life consequences, so maybe I shouldn't have said anything. I'm not sure whether I should apologize. For everyone asking how it got out that I told Harry, Jamie went home and went off on Natalie about him not getting the job, as it was basically a lock, with Harry doing it as a favor to Natalie. She figured the only person who would have changed Harry's mind about doing her the favor was me, so she called and I ended up telling her the truth. She then told everyone else. Edit. For everyone who missed it in the post, Harry and I are roommates, so my home is his home. Harry has a home office and works out of that office most days. He conducts meetings from there all the time, which is normally fine because I know all of his employees really well. He did not end up having the interview with Jamie at the apartment, he had it at the registered company office. Not the jerk. It's likely that Harry didn't make the interview extremely long for no reason. He did it to test Jamie on the things that came up in your discussion, to see if your passing comments were just you having a personality conflict with a nice guy or if the things you mentioned would be issues in his work. It's likely that the interactions with other employees was to see if others got an uncomfortable vibe. Most people can put on a good front for a short interview. Putting them in more real-world situations shakes people out of their best behavior so you can see who they actually are on the job. You did nothing wrong. Jamie only has himself to blame for not getting the job. The fact that he got angry at Natalie because he didn't get a job tells you a lot about someone not taking responsibility for their own actions. That kind of behavior would totally come up in interactions with his potential coworkers and likely had more to do with why Jamie didn't get the job than anything you said. If he had got the job, he would likely have failed his probation period anyway. Am I the jerk for throwing the clothes on the floor when my kids don't fold them neatly? So I've always been kind of a neat freak mom the entire time my kids have been alive. I always expect their rooms to be clean, and I check drawers, closets, and storage bins to make sure that they don't just shove stuff in there to make the room appear clean. My kids, who are 16, 13, 9, and 6, are all responsible for putting away their laundry, and my eldest two are responsible for folding their own clothes, which bothers me because my 13-year-old folds his clothes in a way that bothers me. He rolls them instead of properly folding them. Ever since the kids have been home and have more free time, I'm more strict about the way they put away their clothes. I expect their clothes to be folded in a certain way and stored in a certain way. I read from a mommy blogger a few years ago that when her kids' clothes weren't organized, she would make a mess for them to organize the right way. I considered it for a few years, but now that the kids are old enough, I think it's the way for us to go. I haven't had to do this until yesterday. I walked into my 16-year-old's room while she was FaceTiming her boyfriend and saw her basket of laundry that needed to be folded, and out of curiosity, I opened the drawers and I saw that she had just shoved her clothes in there. I started making a mess, and she screamed, "Mom, why?" And I told her she knew why. After that, I walked out of the room. She explained to her boyfriend what I had done, and he says, "Your mom is crazy." And I peek my head into her room, give her a look, and she ends the call with him and breaks down crying. I told my husband what happened, and he told me, "I knew you said you were going to do it, but I didn't think you would actually follow through with it." This morning, I woke up to a note on my daughter's door saying, "Until mom can get mental help, I'm staying with Aunt." I texted her, no response. I tried contacting my sister, who said she has no plans to return until I get mental help and stop being such a controlling jerk. My husband, sister, and mom are all against me, which hurts. I don't think it harmed anyone. It benefits her and helps her stay organized. Update. Almost 2 months ago, I made this post. It really blew up, and even people on Twitter chimed in. Well, the night I made the post, I was still in serious denial. I replied to some comments, and my denial was perfectly clear for everyone to see. The day after, I read some more comments and messages I received from everyone. I resorted to the guest room and cried for hours. I read some people telling me that their moms were similar to me and that they no longer have relationships with them. That was truly my worst fear. I seriously love my kids more than anything on this planet, even if my actions don't always show it. I booked a virtual appointment with a psychologist who diagnosed me with OCD and let me know that she would help me. I've since had about 8 sessions with her, and she's been a big help. Of course, I still have a long way to go, but I've been notching some improvements already. As for my daughter, she stayed at my sister's house and came home a few days after I told her that there would be major improvements in my behavior. I set all the kids down and told them that I have the resources to not be such an overbearing jerk to them anymore. One thing I do want to address is the fact that I was usually controlling with them, but the incident I wrote about was the one that sent both me and my daughter over the edge. Me and her are on much better terms now. I want to thank Reddit for helping me wake up to becoming a better mom and a wife. I also want to apologize to anyone who I brought back bad memories to. I want to have relationships with my kids until we all grow old, and I know so many of you guys don't have that, which breaks my heart, but also hearing your stories gave me a big change of heart and are helping me fix my relationships and become a better person. Park in front of my house? Okay then. It's been about a decade since this happened. I live on a street where some houses have driveways, but some of us don't, and we have to park in the street. We just had enough room to park our 2 vehicles in front of the house. A new neighbor moved in across the street. I'll call her Brittany. Brittany had a tiny Prius and parked in front of our house a lot. She didn't have a driveway. The space in front of her house was almost always empty when this happened. At the time, I had a toddler and a newborn, and getting them into the house was a pain when I had to circle the block and park on the other side of the street, hauling the car seat in one hand while juggling a diaper bag, groceries, and a toddler that hadn't developed a sense of self-preservation yet. The thing that got to me was that there would be plenty of space for 2 cars to park, but Brittany couldn't be bothered to pull forward and scoot back. She usually parked right in the middle so no one else could park near her car. One day, I'd had enough. I hauled the baby, the stuff, and the toddler up to her porch and knocked politely on her door. Me. Hey, I live across the street. I was just wondering if you could park in front of your house instead of mine, please. Brittany. That's like really inconvenient for me to drive around the whole block just to park. Me. I know, but as you can see, gesturing to the circus at my feet, I have my hands full. It makes it harder when you park in front of my house. Can you please try parking in front of yours instead? Brittany. Look, I'll just park where I want. There's no assigned spaces. She slams the door. Oh, it was on. I wasn't sure what my revenge would be, but I knew it would be coming. The opportunity came a couple days later. I came home and my spouse was already parked in front of her car. But lo, the next door neighbor wasn't home yet. I could park behind her. I'd have to scoot up to make sure there was enough room for my other neighbor. They were innocent in all of this. So I pulled up behind them and checked the space. 2 feet of room. Back into the car to inch forward some more. Checked again. Still had a good foot. I kept doing this till there was literally 2 inches between our bumpers. And here's the thing. I had 2 cars at my disposal now, whereas she only had 1. So into the spouse's van I go to inch backwards until there were only inches from kissing bumpers. Perfect. Point of note, both of my vehicles were old, scratched, and beat up. I probably wouldn't have noticed another dent in them, but the Prius was pristine. I knew Brittany wasn't likely to risk it. I expected that I would get a knock on the door sometime that evening, but when I took the trash out that night, Brittany and her Prius were gone. She must have executed a 200-point turn to get out. I cackled to myself and went to bed happy. The best part was, she stopped parking on my side of the street after that one incident. I guess she realized it really was more convenient to park on hers. Am I the jerk for cooking with ingredients my roommate/coworker is allergic to? I, 25 female, have been living with my coworker, male 27, for 2 months in our company's house that they had for seasonal workers. Up until 3 weeks ago, my company reimbursed us for some pantry essentials, such as cooking oil, spices, and rice. My roommate took advantage of that by buying and eating mainly things that were reimbursed, and he'd buy the bougie organic stuff too. The company found out and ended the reimbursements, so we had to pay for our own food. No big deal for me, since most of the stuff I ate didn't qualify for reimbursements. But that meant that roommate would pretty much starve because he doesn't want to spend money on food. Not my problem. It became my problem when he started taking my food. Having gone through 5 years of university, I'm no stranger to inconsiderate roommates, but this is the first time anyone's ever stolen from me. Roommate is allergic to pretty much everything. He's got some rare condition that makes him unable to consume cane sugar, nightshade produce, mushrooms, and anything processed by yeast. For the 2 months we've lived together, he would quite often eat my rice if I didn't label the container. Extremely rude of him, but at the end of the day, it's just rice. Then 3 weeks ago, after our company stopped reimbursing us for pantry items, I bought a bag of rice, made a pot of it, and labeled my container. I came home from work the next day to find all of it gone. My roommate had eaten all of my cooked rice. When I confronted him, he got defensive and claimed that he didn't know. The company never said anything about ending the reimbursements. I called him out on his BS because our manager called both of us into her office to let us know that the company was ending the house reimbursements. I told him to buy and cook his own rice. He ran away crying. Literally, he ran into his room, slammed the door, started bawling his eyes out, and then proceeded to call his parents to complain about how I'm a mean, toxic person and he didn't do anything wrong. To prevent him from eating my rice again, I made a big pot of it using strained mushroom liquid. It's just the water left over from rehydrating dried mushrooms. I put the leftover rice in a couple of labeled containers. Today I came home from work to him curled up in pain on the sofa. I asked him how he liked that mushroom liquid I used in my rice, and he had a huge breakdown. He accused me of hurting him, of how I knew he couldn't eat mushroom products, and yet I cooked rice with it anyway, and how he had filed charges against me for what I did. He ended up filing a complaint with HR and my manager about the whole ordeal, and now I have a meeting with both of them tomorrow afternoon to discuss what happened. Am I the jerk here? Edit. He was faking it the whole time. I heard him laughing over the phone in his room about how now he's gonna have the whole place to himself by next week, and that he can't believe I fell for it.
Karen boss tried to use a joke I made to get me fired. I reverse Uno. About 15 years ago, I moved across a few states to where my wife was starting her new position as a professor at a local university. We had the first 3 of our 4 kids, and while I was going to mainly stay home to take care of them, I wanted at least a part-time job for extra money and whatnot. So I took a full-time position as a cook at a retirement home and care facility in the town we'd moved to. I have a culinary degree and years of experience working in small kitchens, hotels, and a previous university kitchen. This was a very small kitchen and had a lot of the hand-me-down practices that have managed to avoid professionalism and efficiency. Basically, whoever ran the kitchen just did what they felt like doing if they thought it made sense. The current head of dietary, who actually hired me, had years of experience, but she was retiring and her position was being taken by a kitchen staff member who was brought into the kitchen from being a housekeeper. She had very little training and no certifications, but was taking the courses as she started the position on the facility's dime. At first, it was very friendly and casual. We all got along fair enough. It was my new supervisor boss. We had me, we had the main cook, Queen, who had plenty of experience in small-town kitchens, and the next truck driver, King, who had no experience, but could follow directions and sort out, assemble, the meals as directed. Our facility director, Big Boss, ran the entire place and all departments. I had a habit of maintaining a professional demeanor wherever I worked until I could test the atmosphere and relax into whatever environment it turned out to be. I learned from this incident not to do that and always maintain a professional face at work no matter how relaxed it is because of this incident. After some months in the position, all was mostly fine, but boss had issues with the way I performed my tasks. I used pretty standard practices for preparing, cooking, and expediting meals that she was familiar with. An example would be prepping meal components during downtime as residents of the facility would come to be fed. She was used to just standing at the window, waiting for the nurses to come and give the name of the resident and their meal choice. Then, as the aides cleaned up, she'd rush to prepare food. I would come to the window when a nurse approached, but otherwise be prepping food to go into the ovens and stovetops for the impending lunch hour, or prepping food for the next day's meal. This not only managed time better, but allowed me to avoid many snafus and possibly prep something extra for the independent residents who would request something at the last minute for lunch when they came for the morning meal. They had a tendency to just trickle in, and there weren't more than maybe 40 residents in total. One event would be the morning she came in early to do paperwork, and she saw me preparing 4 full pans of pork chops to put into the cooler until oven time. She was terribly confused. Boss:
What are you doing?
Me: pork chops for lunch.
But it's breakfast time.
Yes, breakfast is ready on the steam table.
But you're supposed to be serving breakfast.
Me: I am. As they get here, I get them their breakfast. I've already prepped the veggies and potatoes. After I get these pans in the cooler, I can start the cake for tomorrow's dessert. Boss:
But it's breakfast.
And so on. This was the start of her trying to change my methods to hers, but almost every time she'd try, I'd resist. At first, she pulled the "I'm in charge" thing, but not often because I had more experience than her and I could explain how my method was standard practice or made more sense than hers. She never had a reasonable explanation that what I was doing shouldn't be done other than,
I don't like it.
She really had some ridiculous ideas about how to cook. A few times she would involve the facility head, Big Boss, and I'd get to work and be told I needed to go talk to her. Every single time I managed to defend what I was doing and get agreement from Big Boss that what I was doing was professional and acceptable. More than a handful of times I demonstrated how things Boss expected of me not only weren't efficient, but sometimes skirted or even violated serve safe and food handling safety. A big one was she'd been angry that she now had to bend over to lift out meats out of the boxes on the bottom shelf, instead of on the second shelf where she had them previously, above the shelf where we had boxes of lettuce and other raw veggies. I'd been told to continue what I was doing, and Big Boss would then talk to Boss, who would stare daggers at me for the rest of the shift. This went on for months until Big Boss thought she could finally get rid of me through some shenanigans. One day I was called into Boss's office towards the end of my shift, and she said we needed to go talk to Big Boss. We go together, and Big Boss tells me that Boss has brought to her attention my unprofessional behavior in the kitchen. Boss then clarifies by relating a little off-color gag I'd taken part in one day with Queen. We had been putting away our delivery, and each of us had one of those 80-20 meat tubes. Then, just for fun, on a total whim, we both held them out in front of us, swung them around, and chased King around in front of the cooler with them. Yes, it was unprofessional, but this wasn't an isolated incident of tomfoolery, and it was the same sort of play the Boss herself had taken part in. Boss thought she had finally gotten me as Big Boss asked me if this had actually happened, and I said it had. Boss starts to explain she can't have that kind of behavior in her kitchen, and it was unprofessional. She loved being able to say that directed at me, considering I'd shown how unprofessional she was previously, and blah blah blah. When she was done and Big Boss looked to me for my response, I apologized and agreed it was inappropriate and I should have known better. But I also explained that I never made an unprofessional joke or took part in any behavior considered unprofessional there until I had seen that it was commonplace in this kitchen. I waited to gauge the environment first until I saw how they conducted themselves in their kitchen. After I saw what they considered acceptable, I took part. I also explained that it was actually Boss who had first made me aware that they were regularly engaging in these types of topics and behavior, and only after she had wandered into that territory did I feel comfortable enough to go there myself. Then I apologized and said it wouldn't happen again, but that everyone, including Boss, should be held to the same expectations. Boss immediately snapped.
What did I do that made you think it was okay to be so offensive?
Which was a huge mistake. Me. Boss, who's Henry? At this, she clammed up and her eyes grew wide as she turned so red it was kind of scary. Big Boss looks at Boss in confusion, and Boss just looks back and forth between us in panic. I begin to explain that Henry is a certain item that Boss keeps in her office. I know this because on my second day in the kitchen, the dishwashing machine was, like it was quite often, being repaired because it had broken down again. The repairman was this guy that Boss and Queen kept staring at and giggling about. Queen jokes she thinks boss is sabotaging the machine so that this guy will have to come repair it again. At one point, he goes out to his truck and Queen tells boss she should just go for it, asking him out or whatever. And boss declines, smiling and giggling, and then says,
Looks like I have a date with Henry tonight.
Queen chuckles, and I ask who is Henry. Queen tells me it's boss's special friend, and boss finishes by saying that,
A girl's got to do what a girl's got to do, even if she has to keep buying batteries.
I go on to explain that Queen can confirm this, and there are probably other instances where others were present where boss was engaging in similar discussion or taking part in similar joking around, and that it was only after a few weeks of this behavior that I feel comfortable in taking part. Big Boss is looking at boss for a rebuttal, but boss is still standing there shuffling her feet, sweating bullets. Big Boss then thanks me for being frank, and that from this point forward, none of that behavior is acceptable from anyone, and excuses me to finish my shift as boss stays behind to presumably get yelled at. There were a few instances of us butting heads after that along the same lines as before, but she didn't talk to me much after. I ended up moving on a couple of months after. Am I the jerk for telling my wife it's ridiculous to cry over soup? My wife is 4 months pregnant with our 5th kid. We have a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old now. Since childcare is so expensive, she's been staying home. Money is tight right now, and her car broke down, so we've been relying on mine. She texted me and told me she was craving a particular can of soup, so I bought it and brought it home. She placed it on the counter and said she would make it after she gave the kids a bath. While she was upstairs, my dad came over and mentioned he was hungry, so I told him to help himself to anything in the kitchen as we had made dinner shortly before. Well, he ended up leaving to go home, and my wife came downstairs, then I heard her frantically searching for something. I asked what she was doing, and she was looking for the soup she left out. I told her I haven't seen it and that my dad came over, but he usually doesn't eat canned foods. I called him, and he admitted he did in fact take it and that he was sorry because he was unaware she was saving it. When I told her this, she started sobbing and saying she can never have one thing in this house and how bad she was craving it and wanting it so bad. She cried for almost an hour over it. Later, I told her that she was being ridiculous and that she was an adult, and crying over something as stupid as a can of soup was for kids. She told me I didn't understand, and she's feeling very emotional lately and stressed. I talked to my mom, who told me I needed to give her grace and that my words were very jerkish. Am I the jerk? Edit. When I leave work, I'm going to buy her all the vegetable soup they have in stock. Also, when I say money is tight, I don't mean that we're struggling to survive. We took out a loan to build 3 extra bedrooms onto our home. Her car broke down about 2 months ago. I do leave her the car if she needs to take our daughter and son to their therapy appointments or if she wants to go somewhere. I was also outside building when my dad popped over. He stopped by to see if I needed help building the rooms. My wife was upstairs for a while doing bedtime routines, so they didn't see each other. I'll apologize and do the bedtime routine tonight and pick out the scariest shark movie I can find. She loves Jaws movies, so we will spend some time together. I do love my wife, even if it doesn't appear that way. Also, yes, we have 5 kids, but we wanted a big family. I wanted 3, she wanted 4. I was an only child, and she came from a big family. We had 4. After our last baby, she told the doctor she wanted her tubes tied. We aren't struggling to survive. We have food, shelter, clothes, and occasionally we go out to dinner and take the kids to fun places. The only issue is childcare because it's cheaper for her to stay home, and she asked me if it would be okay until our youngest goes to preschool. We may have a lot of kids, but we do take care of them. I work long hours at 2 jobs, so I'm pretty exhausted when I come home. Plus, I'm building rooms for our kids. I do help with my kids. I love my family. You're the jerk. She's pregnant. She's been dealing all day with 4 little tyrants. She feels unattractive, and she had a craving for some soup. As a comfort, and probably because she didn't get to finish a meal all day. The correct response should have been, "I'm sorry, it looks like Dad ate it. Go sit down and put your feet up. Give me 30 minutes and I will bring you a bowl." Then get in the car, get the soup, plus a few extra cans and maybe her favorite candy bar or something, and pamper her. What you did was mean. Don't invalidate people's feelings. You're the jerk. If money is tight, then why are you having more kids? Karen loses it over me cooking breakfast that wasn't good enough for her. I'm 32, male. My fiance, who's 31, was working from home this morning. I asked her if she would like some bacon and an egg sandwich, and she said yes.
She does prefer mayo on both sides of the toast when she has this, but as I prepared it all, I forgot. As soon as I said it in front of her, I remembered and said, "Hold on, I forgot the mayo. I'll go put it on real quick." To which she replied,
Forget it. It's ruined now.
I got upset by this comment as it made me feel as if I had somehow ruined breakfast, so I tried to explain that it was an easy remedy and the sandwich was most definitely not ruined. She told me to just forget it again, so I went back into the kitchen, finished making my own sandwich and sat down. She came in and started to talk about how she thought it would be a fried egg, which again just felt like she was complaining about nothing, as I never said that I would be frying them, just stated bacon and an egg sandwich. When I got upset that she seemed to still just be complaining, she basically told me that I was wrong. She wasn't complaining, she was just making comments, and I was the jerk for being upset since she didn't say anything wrong. Am I the jerk? Edit. I scrambled the eggs in a bowl with some seasoning and a bit of milk, put it in the bacon grease, and waited until it was cooked on the bottom. Flipped the egg like a pancake and cooked the other side. Cut it in half and put it on the toast like a sandwich. Not the jerk. Here's a great solution though. Never make her anything ever again. Or dump her, that's another good option. She sounds entitled and ungrateful. The fact that she tried to walk back and twist what she had said is the icing on the cake.
I wasn't complaining when I said forget it, it's ruined. I was just making a neutral comment.
That's gaslighting and she shouldn't be treating you like that. Am I the jerk for not telling my roommate I own the house? Brief backstory. About a year ago, my last remaining grandparent passed and my father inherited all assets, including a house. I had been saving for a nice down payment, at least 50%, so I could have a lower mortgage payment each month, thus allowing me to save money for travel. When my father inherited this house, which he had no interest in moving into yet, he offered to sell it to me for slightly below market rate, with the caveat that he and my stepmother could eventually move into the basement apartment. I agreed because they're both incredible people who are not at all invasive and would give me my privacy if they lived there. So I paid a 60% down payment, financed the rest, and moved in. Present day. About 6 months ago, I started considering renting out the finished basement apartment. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, and a small kitchenette. A friend of mine said his brother was moving to my city and needed a place. He's a brand new teacher and doesn't make great money, so he needed a place that wasn't expensive. I offered to let him rent my basement for way less than market rate, $650, which would include utilities. He readily accepted and signed a year-long lease. Well, a few days ago, he asked if he could start paying the landlord directly instead of giving me rent money each month. I was under the impression my friend had told him that I own the house, so I was confused and I told him we don't have a landlord and that I'm the owner. He got very upset and screamed at me for lying for over 6 months and taking advantage of him by making him pay so much in rent. For the record, an apartment similar to the one in my house would be well over twice what he's paying me, closer to 3 times for something this nice. He asked how much of my mortgage he's covering, and I said, why does that matter? You're getting a nice, quiet place to live, access to a full kitchen and laundry room, and you're paying an amount that you can afford. My personal finances aren't really a factor here. He stormed out of the room and slammed the basement door. He's still not speaking to me. I asked a few other friends and some family members, and most said I'm wrong for having him cover my mortgage payments. Only a few say I'm in the right. So, am I the jerk for having my roommate cover $650 of my $775 per month mortgage? He has a lease, so I won't be evicting him over this alone. If he does any damage or becomes hostile, I'll look at the eviction process. But for now, he will remain, unless he chooses to break the lease, which I'd allow him to do if he wants to. He also didn't bother to read the lease before signing. The lease clearly states that I'm the homeowner. I didn't trick him or keep the info from him. He simply didn't read what he was signing. I didn't get the house for almost free, as some people choose to believe. My father sold it to me for about 75% of its value, more or less as an advance on rent he and my stepmother will pay when they move in here in a few years. We already agreed they won't pay monthly rent, but will contribute to utilities and groceries at that time. I also made a 60% down payment, so I have quite a bit invested, as well as paying about $1,500 a month out of pocket for taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, etc. What do they think people do when they rent? They cover the landlord's mortgage payment. You're definitely not the jerk, and quite honestly, do not renew the lease with this person. How entitled can someone be? I rented an Airbnb for a few months when I was new to the area. More precisely, I rented a bedroom. Yes, I had access to the kitchen, shared bathroom with whoever else were guests, shared laundry room and pool, but still, bedroom. For more than you're charging for a finished basement apartment. It sounds like your renter is going to get sticker shock when he moves out. Tell everyone who thinks you're ripping this guy off to check the market rate for the area and buzz off. Were you supposed to let him stay for free? Again, not the jerk, but I think I'd start looking for smarter friends. Not the jerk. The question isn't the mortgage, it's fair market rate for what he's getting. I get the shock he's feeling, but he's not entitled to free housing just because you're friends. Goodness, I hate defending a landlord. Makes me feel dirty.
If you feel dirty for defending a landlord who did nothing wrong, you might want to talk to someone about that.
Am I the jerk for telling my brother's fiance that we don't owe her a family? I'm female 25. My stepbrother Nico, who's 29, has recently got engaged to a woman called Jenny after dating for 2 years. We all tried to welcome Jenny, especially knowing that she grew up in the foster care system and didn't have family. We tried to get to know her, but she seemed to want an instant, intimate connection rather than building one. Me and my younger stepsister Chelsea, who's 22, bore the brunt of her neediness, but our parents have also expressed concerns. Since she met us, she's been trying to insert herself into pictures, family disputes, and social events. She has no boundaries. We've all talked to Nico about it many times, even sitting him down as a family, and he keeps saying he'll talk to her about it, but nothing changes, and it's got worse since the engagement. She tried to make me her maid of honor, demanded my mother throw her a bridal shower, started calling my parents mom and dad even though they asked her not to, and reached out to distant family members that we don't even talk to tell them about the engagement. Last week, we were all, Chelsea, Nico, me, and our parents, staying in our parents' place. Jenny, Nico, and my boyfriend were the only ones not up yet, and the rest of us were in the kitchen. Chelsea, my mom, and I were talking about taking a weekend trip. Jenny came in, having overheard us, saying it sounded like fun, and proceeded to invite herself along. I was pretty annoyed by this and said she couldn't just invite herself. Jenny asked why wouldn't she be invited, and I said because marrying Nico doesn't give you a blanket invite to every single thing our family does. Jenny got upset and said she would really like to be included in our family, since it was the only one she knows, and she doesn't have a proper family. I said I know that, and we all sympathize, but that doesn't mean we owe you a new one. The whole room was silent, and Jenny got up and went back upstairs. She didn't come out the rest of the day, but Nico came down to chew me out over what I had said. Our parents defended me, saying he had an opportunity to talk to Jenny, but he didn't. He and Jenny left the same day, and he's now only keeping low-level contact with everyone. When I spoke to him about it since, he just said that I went way too low with what I said to Jenny, and that I've set her back mentally, and that she's really down. I do feel bad, but I also feel like Jenny has been overstepping. We're all open to a relationship with her. We all have good relationships with partners in the family, but she never really made a genuine effort to build relationships with us. She just decided that she was entitled to them, which I think isn't fair. I don't know if I should reach out to Nico or Jenny and apologize, which I will if I've really messed up here. I don't want to be the reason Nico stops talking to us. I just feel like he dropped the ball by letting it get to this point. Edit. Okay, I'm adding this because I thought it was implied, but maybe not. We do push back when Jenny is being intrusive. I can't count how many times I've said, Jenny, I'm not comfortable talking about my love life, therapy, medication, etc. It's really personal. Can we just change the subject? We move on from the conversation, but the next time I talk to her, it's back to square one. Same with my parents. They politely ask her not to call them mom and dad, and she stops for the duration of that conversation and then starts again next time. We've never had a more in-depth conversation with her. We offered, and Nico said no, he would talk to her. Edit 2. For everyone saying I should consider Jenny family because she's engaged to Nico, that isn't what I meant with that comment. I commented this elsewhere, but I'm copying it because it gets the point across. I never said or meant that she isn't part of the family. I guess what I meant with this was, you can't parachute yourself in and expect us to be the family you deserve, because the family every person deserves is the one with their mom and their dad, and it's happy and it's from birth, and you don't have to do anything to earn it. Sadly, not everyone gets that. I know I didn't. And I know how much it must suck for her to feel like she has to work for what other people got for free. I have a crappy biological dad, so I kind of know. You think, why do I have to be good and clever and kind and a million other things to have a good family, while all anyone else has to do is just be born? And it's the worst. But when you come into a family that already exists, that's the way it is. They learn to love you, and it takes time. My stepdad didn't love me the second he met me, or love me just because he loved my mom. He got to know me and figured out who I was as a person, and he loved me for me. We wanted to have that opportunity with Jenny, and maybe that doesn't feel good enough for her, and I guess it's not really fair that she doesn't have the other kind of unconditional love, but I don't think that's up to us or anyone to fix. That's just my view. Well, Jenny was just going to keep pushing until someone pushed back, So this moment was more or less inevitable. You named the elephant in the room, Jenny's neediness, which your whole family has noticed. I don't know whether Nico failed to talk to her in private or whether he did and she failed to heed his warnings. I also don't know if getting to join what she perceived as a close-knit family is a large part of what makes Nico attractive to her. But I do know that your comment stung deeply and Jenny won't stop feeling it for a long time. It's not impossible that this precipitates a breakup between Nico and Jenny, and if it does, it's highly likely that the blame is going to come your way, so an apology is in your strategic interest, regardless of whether your comment was justified or not. I think my final vote is going to be everyone sucks here. Jenny for being pushy, Nico for not warning her, and you for saying something really wounding. No jerks here. I can't blame you for snapping, and I can't blame Jenny for wanting a close family. Growing up the way she did can result in an intense longing for connection and safety and a lack of proper communication skills. She shouldn't insert herself in everyone's business like that, but she also seems to not understand why. I hope she and your brother can work through that together. On the other hand, I completely understand that it feels very invasive if someone does this to you, even if you understand where they're coming from. The way you said it was a bit harsh, but I assume tension has been building up over time. I do think it's good to talk it out with her once all the emotions have settled, and I hope your brother can facilitate the process. She needs to learn the nuance of being welcome, but not overstepping boundaries, and it not being a sign of people not caring about you. I don't know. I kind of think you are the jerk, and your family is too. Like where I come from, when you marry in, you're family. You said she didn't make an effort to know you, but it sounds like she's making lots of effort to know you. She's trying to spend time with you. She's asking you questions about yourself, etc., but she's not good at it. So maybe since you see she would like to be more involved and included, you could try to get to know her instead of telling your brother to put her in her place. Is there any reason you all want to keep her at arm's length, or do you just suck? Am I the jerk for telling my son's wife that his ex is in the family and has been here longer than she has? My son was dating Sabrina. They started in high school and broke up when they were in college. It was a long relationship, and I became really close to her. She is, in my eyes, our daughter. Her family are awful people, and she sees us as her parental figures. She even is planning to have my husband walk her down the aisle when she gets married. Now, when they broke up, it was only their relationship. We didn't drop her since she is our kid at this point. My son wasn't happy, but he moved on, so she gets invited to family events and has for years. My son, who's now 27, is married to Bethany, and she is a nice person. We never clicked. We don't have much in common, and they live 2 hours away, so it's hard to plan stuff to get to know her more. Really, I'm sure it will grow in time. Now, we had a picnic, and all the family members were invited, so Sabrina was there as normal, and I thought the night was nice. Bethany came up to me at the end of the night and expressed that she's uncomfortable with her husband's ex being everywhere, and if I couldn't invite her for family stuff. I told her no, and that Sabrina is part of the family and has been part of the family longer than she has. If there was actually a valid reason, like if she were rude, then I would consider it, but she's done nothing. She left, and my son called me and called me names for picking her over my now real family. Am I the jerk? My husband thinks that she's crazy, but I know we can be biased. Edit. Okay, I'll make this clear. She may not be my kid by blood, but everything else, she is my daughter and has been for about 10 years. Also, Sabrina is engaged, so no, she doesn't want to get back with my son, and I don't want them to either. Yes, I have invited Bethany to do stuff with me. It's always been a no. I would be saying that I don't see her as family if I disinvite her to family events she's been coming to for 10 years. This is asking me to choose between two kids. I will not disown one. No jerks here. You think of Sabrina as your own kid. She's invited to things because you became her surrogate family. Bethany is not a jerk for being upset that someone her husband once loved is invited to all of your family events. I would also be upset if my husband's ex was accepted into his family while I'm still struggling to feel like I'm part of the family. Sorry, but I think you're the jerk. OP tries to intentionally leave out info. She was vague about the length of the relationship her son had with this girl and what her family did to be so horrible. But if you sift through the story, the son is now 27, so Sabrina is also about 27. OP has considered her a daughter for 10 years? It was a long relationship and they broke up in college? What does that mean? They started dating at 17 and then they broke up at 18? OP doesn't tell us, and I'm guessing that's on purpose. Why? Because having some girl that your son dated for such a short period still hanging around 10 years later makes you look like the crazy person that you actually are. Son was against this from the beginning. She's not the daughter, but it sure sounds like OP wishes she had a daughter instead of a son. She now has an actual daughter-in-law who OP admits she doesn't have much in common with. And mom can deny that she wishes her son had married Sabrina all she wants, but her golden treatment of Sabrina, mixed with her cold treatment of Bethany, paints a different picture. Son probably has to listen to mom say, "Should have married Sabrina." OP and her husband are the jerk for building this kind of relationship with their son's high school girlfriend. You're the jerk for continuing this kind of relationship after they broke up, when their son expressed discomfort over it. You're the jerk for not bringing the same energy for your son's actual wife. Sabrina is you're the jerk for not squashing this after the breakup. $20 says mom tried to get Sabrina invited to her son's wedding. Shame on OP. I hope their son goes no contact. My family's in a similar situation, but in our case, I'm Bethany. I have never and will never ask my mother-in-law to stop seeing our version of Sabrina. I understand that they have a bond and it means a lot to them to see each other on holidays. But we deliberately don't see mother-in-law very often anymore. Every time we are around, at group events or just us visits, my mother-in-law brings up how amazing his ex is. She tells everyone who will listen that she wishes her son and his ex had worked things out because she doesn't like me as much. Bethany will never forget your blatant favoritism. Your son will never forget it either. I'm not saying that Sabrina needs to be uninvited to events. I'm saying you need to put in more effort to make Bethany feel like her emotions matter to you at all. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Exes are exes for a reason. When will parents and other family members learn to start respecting that?
Careful now, Karen. We might get comments from people who are upset at you for saying that.
Good. More comments are better for the algorithm. Do it.
Am I the jerk for saying parents should take screaming babies to the restroom or outside until they calm down? I, 38 male, have been seeing this woman who's 35 female for a few months. She has 3 kids who are 8, 10, and 15, and I have none by choice, but I would love to be a stepdad one day. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and my youngest brother is 18 years younger than me. I've been around kids since I was 6 years old. My brothers have a combined 6 kids now. This comes into play later. We've been doing great for the duration of our relationship. No arguments or anything. We've been doing family activities together. Everything's been great. So we're at dinner Friday night, and there's a table of 8 adults and 1 baby. The baby, who's about 2 years old, is just relentlessly screaming for like 15 minutes straight. All gas, no brakes. The parents are acting like nothing is going on, completely ignoring it. I say to her, "This may be an unpopular opinion, but I think one of those parents should take their baby to the restroom or outside until they calm down. It's kind of inconsiderate of everyone else around them." This sparked something in her soul, and she absolutely lost it. Told me,
"If you really feel that way, that just makes you a horrible human being."
and that I was a male Karen for even thinking that. She blames the whole issue on me not having kids and not knowing what it's like, etc.
"If you knew it could possibly offend me, then why did you even say it?"
And that she now can't trust me because I might say something out of line to her kids or parents. Yeesh, and you wonder why she's single. We finished up and I took her home, where we sat in the driveway and talked some more. I explained that I've been around kids my entire life, and even though I don't have any of my own, I absolutely know what it's like. I've had to take my youngest brother outside for the same reason multiple times growing up. If I'm at dinner with my family and one of my nieces or nephews starts losing it, I'm the one that takes them out, so mom and dad can have a break. That I was just expressing my opinion, and it wasn't a big deal if she didn't agree, because it would never come into play with her kids' ages. She refused to let it go and stays livid, continues saying mean things until I asked her to get out and drove home. Gutted. Am I the jerk? Update. Yes, I did break it off. We had 0 communication until Sunday when I called her and officially ended it. She just said,
"Seriously?"
and hung up. I came here for some validation because she really did start to make me feel like I was a jerk for thinking this way. I just wanted to make sure. The restaurant we went to was an upscale Mexican restaurant. She's been a single mom for around 5 years. To those of you saying there must be more to this story, there's not. We've never had a fight. She has introduced me to her kids and they really like me, invite me over for dinner and game nights. Everything was going well. This was a curveball out of the blue, completely blindsided. How would I react on an airplane? This is hilarious to me. I've been through screaming babies on airplanes probably half a dozen times. Obviously, there's nowhere to go on an airplane. I'm proactive and bring noise-canceling headphones on every flight. My parents actually told me they stopped going out to restaurants until I was older due to an epic meltdown I had at a restaurant when I was 2. They refused to be those parents that let me cry it out while everyone else suffered. Am I the jerk for buying a peanut butter cake even though my boyfriend is allergic? I'm 22, female. My boyfriend, who's 24, always told me he was allergic to peanuts. I don't know where he gets that from because his mom has always said that he isn't. I never wanted to risk giving him any and having an allergic reaction, so I just took his word for it. Yesterday, I went to a bakery before work and bought myself a peanut butter cake to eat after lunch. My boyfriend surprised me at work during my break and wanted us to eat lunch together. I told him okay. After we were done eating, my boyfriend saw the bakery bag with the cake and asked if he could have some. I said no, as it was a peanut butter cake and I didn't want him to have an allergic reaction. That's when he got mad at me for buying this, even though he's allergic to it. He said I wasn't being respectful. I told him that I bought it because we weren't supposed to see each other until tonight, 6 p.m., so I'd have time to brush my teeth and stuff, and that I wasn't planning on eating it in front of him. He said that I shouldn't have bought it at all, no matter when we were supposed to see each other, because it was selfish, and as his girlfriend, I shouldn't be eating what I know he can't eat. I think it's not fair that I shouldn't eat something that I like because he's allergic to it. Obviously, I don't eat that when I'm home with him, but we weren't supposed to see each other for the whole afternoon, so I thought it would be a good occasion to have a peanut butter cake. Am I the jerk? Maybe it was selfish to buy something that I know he's allergic to. News. Okay, so I suggested to my boyfriend that we go to a doctor to know the severity of his allergy, but he doesn't want to and accused me of not believing him. So yeah, I don't know what to do anymore. Not the jerk. He needs to grow up. Those are some serious control issues he has. Consider this a red flag and keep an eye out for more. I'm seriously allergic to shellfish, and I would never expect someone to stop eating it. I'm jealous of the fact they can, and I live vicariously. Even if his allergy is real, you were in no way of endangering him. Having a few family members with severe peanut allergies, I understand they're different. OP was respectful of the allergy. She wasn't supposed to see him until later that night. She mentioned in a comment somewhere that she'd have plenty of time to brush her teeth and clean up. And for those talking about extreme cases, I bet this isn't her first time eating peanut butter since being with him. I'm also pretty sure they've kissed after she's eaten peanut butter sometime earlier in the day. She'd know by now if it was that severe. OP has been careful and respectful. Am I the jerk for checking out of parental duties after my wife said I'm not the father? My wife and I have been married for about 4 years. She brought 3 kids from previous relationships into the marriage while I have none. They moved into my house after the marriage because I live in a better school district. Obviously, we've had our ups and downs, but overall it's been good until a couple of weeks ago when I woke up and found a large dent running down the entire passenger side of my car. The dent is about hand's width, starts at the front fender, and runs down all the way to the rear tire. I was furious and thought someone sideswept my car as it was parked on the street. I checked our doorbell camera to see if it recorded anything and was surprised to see our 16-year-old daughter sneaking out of the house in the middle of the night and driving off in my car. She returned hours later, stumbling into the house. Outside of those 2 events, the doorbell camera didn't record anything else but a couple of cars passing by that didn't come close to mine. I angrily showed my wife the recording and told her our daughter needs to be punished, but she said that she'll talk to her. I argued that talk isn't enough, which led us to an argument. My wife argued that the new family dynamic has been hard on the kids, while I argued that it doesn't excuse the damage done to my car. I wanted her to agree to ground our daughter from social media and make her get a job to pay for the damage. We argued for hours until she said I don't get a say in any punishment because I'm not her father. That ended the argument and I walked off. Since then, I've checked out of any parental duties. I've been an adult and still make sure the kids are safe and fed, but I haven't done anything a father would do. They had doctor's appointments last week for their checkups because they play sports in school, and I refused to drive them, causing my wife to have to take off work. They start school next week, and I've dropped them off ever since they moved in, but I told my wife she'll have to do it this year. She argued she can't because of her work schedule, and I answered a mother would figure it out. She called me a child and said to grow up. I think since I'm not her father, I don't have to take on the responsibilities of one, but obviously she disagrees. Am I the jerk? I was angry when I wrote this, so I left out some info. My wife wants me to report it to my insurance as a hit and run. She said that way no one has to pay for it. I argued that I'll have to pay for it in the long run because they'll jack up my rates. I'm not ignoring the kids and I still talk to them daily. I just don't do or make any parental decisions like I stated before. Also, the other day, our son asked me if he should play basketball or football, and I told him go ask his mother. She wants you to report it as a hit and run? Insurance fraud is a crime. Don't do it. Also, you had better report the theft of your car and the accident to the police. She obviously hit something with it, and there's a good chance a camera somewhere recorded your car and it can be traced back to you. Then I think you should separate. Her daughter committed at least 3 serious crimes. She's put you at risk of being sued and possibly arrested. You can't live in a home where that behavior isn't dealt with. Everyone sucks here. Wife and daughter are jerks for obvious reasons. You're a jerk for not taking this seriously enough. You're playing petty games about basketball and rides to school when there's a criminal in the house and her mother is enabling her. What else is she up to that you don't know about? Not the jerk, but your wife definitely is. What kind of mother is fine with her 16-year-old stealing a car, driving like that, and causing some sort of accident? If I did that, I wouldn't even have a social life until I went off to college. Sorry, but you are beyond dumb for marrying someone with that many kids and none of them are yours. Let me guess, you pay for all or the majority of the bills in the household. Good luck with that. Those kids could burn the house down and she won't say a word. They don't respect you, they just found a sucker to use. It's not about marrying someone who has 3 kids, it's about this woman in particular being a jerk. Let's not make sweeping generalizations here just because you apparently think all single moms are gold diggers or something. Look, if you want to co-sign with this buffoonery, go ahead. This is a completely bad deal for him. Look at this situation. Basically, it's a no-win situation. He took 4 people into his home, and instead of making his life easier, they made it worse. Like I said in my earlier post, he was dumb for marrying her, even dumber for letting them all move in.
My Karen wife is demanding my daughter share her college fund with her stepsister. I'm married to Ashley. Our girls from previous relationships are both 17. My ex-wife was Sam. She and I were never a great couple, but we were great friends and great parents and co-parents, so we stayed very close after the divorce. I was aware she had started saving for our daughter's future education. We had reached somewhat of a compromise on how to handle that. I did most of the spending on her adolescent activities and extras, so all her extracurricular activities, hobbies, and for the most part, gifts that we shared, while she saved for the future in an effective way. I never knew how much was in the account until 2 years ago when my ex passed. It was then I learned she had saved a hefty amount and that aside from allowing for her funeral expenses, she had left money for our daughter to use as she saw fit outside of the college money. Ashley and I married 7 years ago, and at the time we had discussed money for the girls, etc. I explained that I was not saving, but my ex-wife was. She had not started anything for her daughter at that point, and her ex was not saving either. So we started to put a little by when we could, but we were never able to save huge chunks at a time. After Sam passed, money became a much larger issue. Ashley was upset to learn my daughter had a considerable amount more than my stepdaughter for college and that she had money to spare. It only became a bigger deal this past May. My daughter told me she had decided to do community college in her mom's hometown so she could be close to her grandparents for a while and could still follow her dreams. Ashley then brought up how some of that money could go to my stepdaughter. I told her no, that it was not our money, and even if she tried to suggest that it would be mine, seeing as my daughter is a minor, I pointed out that it would be stealing to just take it away from her, and I had never contributed to that fund directly, and it would be taking my ex-wife's money. Ashley went off about Sam putting so much away when she knew our daughter had a stepsister and how she was selfish to make her so much better off than her only sibling. I told her she needed to get over that because Sam only had one kid to think about, and it wasn't her job to think about my stepdaughter or even any biological kids I could have had after our divorce. Ashley told me to think about my stepdaughter. I told her my stepdaughter is not entitled to my daughter's money or my ex-wife's money, whichever way she wanted to look at it. She asked how I could be so callous about her daughter's disadvantage. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your ex-wife saved it for your daughter, not the stepdaughter, so she's not entitled to any of it at all. Not the jerk, but your wife sure is. For me, this childish behavior would be a reason to break up. Not the jerk. Sam saved for her daughter, her only daughter, not for a stranger's kid who she had no responsibility for. Don't punish your daughter by taking away her college fund that her mother set up for her just because your wife doesn't know how to make good financial decisions for her kid. OP. I would never take away from my daughter. I would also never expect Sam to have saved or given money for my stepdaughter. Mostly, I was just questioning my own handling of saying no and staying firm, whether I lack more care or compassion in this matter. Not the jerk, but definitely explain to your daughter that it's her money left by her mother. It seems like she has a good idea of what she wants to do with it. Maybe talk to her about financial responsibility and all of that as well. I feel like your current wife might be the type to try and guilt your daughter into giving up some of the money or sharing. OP. I don't believe my wife would go for that. I do believe this might not be over with her and me, but it will change our marriage incredibly if she continues to push for this. My daughter wouldn't share with her stepsister. Neither would my stepdaughter. The girls are not close and don't have a sisterly relationship. It's fine, but they are not each other's biggest fans. I also have the kind of relationship with my daughter where she would tell me if someone was trying to pressure her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
We've heard similar stories a few times, and I can just never understand the audacity of these Karens.
Am I the jerk for taking my wife's side after she screamed at my crazy mother? I, 33, male, am married to my wonderful wife Melody, who's 29, and she's currently pregnant with our first kid together. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Tina, whose mother and I split 50-50 custody, so I know for the most part what Melody needs in order to feel supported while she carries our kid. I've been spending lots of time making sure she's comfortable and taking on more of the load at home so she's not doing too much. This is her first kid after all, and it's obviously a lot for her physically and emotionally. My mother and Melody don't get along too well. Mom didn't like my ex either. We broke up because we were headed on different paths, not because of my mother, and there's no bad blood. So I think she just doesn't like her because she's dating me for whatever reason. It's weird. She's very nitpicky about Melody, how much she does around the house, how emotional she is. Melody already cries very easily, and being pregnant has made her even more sensitive, which is fine. The fact that she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, it just seems like nothing Melody does is okay. I do, however, stand up for her and do not just allow my mom to talk down to her. Today, before picking up my daughter from summer camp, Melody went to 3 different grocery stores to find rotisserie chicken. She's been talking about it since last night and really wanted one. She sent me picture messages documenting her quest for the chicken and finally found it. My girl was happy. Rotisserie chicken is also kind of a comfort food for her, like spaghetti, because her mom used to make one of those when she was having a lazy day and didn't feel like cooking. She was planning on serving that with some other basic sides for dinner. Perfectly fine with me. My mother came by to see Tina and started telling Melody the chicken is bad for her and she should not be eating that while pregnant. Melody said it's fine. She usually eats healthy and just wants this one thing she's craving. My mom went on about how unhealthy it was and said she needs to eat something else. Melody said no and went to the backyard to FaceTime her family, out of state. When she came back, my mom had thrown out the food and ordered takeout, a salad for Melody and pizza for everyone else. Melody asked where the chicken was, and my mother told her she needs to start being a responsible mother and eat correctly for the baby. Melody screamed, "What's wrong with you? Why are you always such a jerk to me?" She then started crying and called me home. I came back and asked my mother to leave after hearing her story and said she's not to come back until she apologizes for how she treated Melody. My mom went on about how I'm choosing another woman over her, but I just think enough is enough, and Melody reached her limit. She apologized to me for blowing up when Tina was in the house, but I told her it's okay, things happen. Tina is okay, and I went to find her another chicken before the store closed. My dad thinks I'm right for taking Melody's side, but my brother thinks I should always defend mom, so am I the jerk? Edit. Okay, not to be that guy, but I did not expect this to get so much attention. I woke up to so many notifications, and I'm going to try to go through as many as I can, but thank you for all of the support. Melody loves all the kind messages from all of you, especially the mamas and soon-to-be mamas who get it, as she put it. 1. My mom claimed it was the seasoning and fat and grease that made the chicken bad for her. It's all BS, but that's what she claimed. I'll talk to my dad first, then have a family meeting. 2. I do plan on having a sit-down with both my parents and my brother. I'll talk to my dad first, then have a family meeting. A lot of you asked why I would still want my mom around, and honestly, maybe I'm just weak, but that's my mother. However, if she cannot learn to change and respect my family, then we will just have to go no contact. It's hard, but it is what it is. Melody doesn't even want to completely cut her out, she just wants change as well. But I will protect Melody at all costs, and if that means cutting off my mom, then so be it. 3. My ex and I did not break up because of my mother. We had different ideas of where our lives were going. Tina was not planned, and we were already heading towards our separate ways before she was pregnant. We tried to make it work for Tina, but that's not what relationships are about. So we split, and it's working great. My ex and Melody get along great. Tina is happy, and we work through things as one big blended family. My ex and Melody have talked about my mother with each other before, and that was when I realized I needed to see a therapist to work through my childhood with a mom like mine. It's a process. I'm working through it as best I can. 4. Some people asked about our culture. We are all Black American, so I think it's more of a mom-son thing than a cultural thing. Not the jerk. Glad you went on a hunt for chicken to replace the one that your mother threw away. Great husbanding on your end, OP. What is wrong with your mom, though? My new coworker demands to be called Miss Potter. I've been with my company for 6 years now. We are very informal with each other and have a fairly laid-back culture. The company president is Dave. My boss is Lou. I tell employees who call me Mr. Smith, fake name, that my name is Dennis and that there's no need for formality. We recently hired a new employee. The fake name that I will give her for this post is Jenny Potter. In coming on board with us, Jenny signed all of her emails as Miss Potter. When she answers the phone, it's, "Good afternoon, this is Miss Potter speaking." When she calls me, it's, "Good morning, Dennis, this is Miss Potter." And my response is always, "Good morning, Jenny, how can I help you?" If I send an email to Jenny, the response is signed by Miss Potter, emphasis hers. She is 3 levels below me in a different line of report in terms of company hierarchy, so her supervisor's boss reports to someone on the same level as me, if that makes sense. It got back to me that she thinks I'm disrespectful for not calling her Miss Potter when I speak to her. When I speak to others about it, most state that they just ignore it. Don't use a name to address her or respond to her queries, and let her call herself whatever she wants to. My boss thinks it's idiotic and that she's not at any level within the company to demand that. When I told my wife, she replied that it's obviously a button for this woman, and I'm being a jerk by antagonizing her. My counterpoint to this is that nobody in the company gets addressed formally, and if I don't call my boss or his boss by anything but their first names, I'm not going to formally address another employee several layers down the hierarchy. You're the jerk. She's being very polite about how she wants to be addressed, and you're being a jerk about it. She wants to be called Miss, call her Miss. Your position doesn't excuse this behavior, in fact, it makes it worse. She's not being that polite by demanding she be addressed with an honorific when no one else is. She's demanding she be addressed with more respect than anyone else at the company. Asking someone to refer to you as Mr. or Mrs. when everyone is on a first-name basis is the same as asking someone to call you sir or ma'am. He's allowed to be uncomfortable with that, and it makes sense that him being her superior makes it even weirder. It would be like having to call someone who works for you ma'am, or like students referring to a teacher by their first name and the professor responding with, "Good to see you as well, Mr. Smith." You know who historically gets referred to by their first name and asked to respond formally? Servants, typically. So yeah, the reason his position is relevant is because she's asking him to verbally refer to her as his superior when he speaks to her, even though she's dramatically inferior to him at the company. Edit. Her reasonable recourse is to ask to be called by her last name. "Hey there, Potter, how's it going today?" Very common practice, very normal. No honorific or implied relationship. Very simple. And she's clearly already comfortable using the last name, so it would be unreasonable to say that Miss Potter is significantly different enough from just Potter to upset her. He gets to decide to be called by his first name or not. She gets to decide to be called by her first name or not. Just because he breaks the conventions of basic business etiquette does not mean that she has to, no matter their relative positions. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. It's about boundaries, not hierarchy. Maybe she likes to keep it formal so she can draw a line between private affairs and work-related stuff, or she simply isn't comfortable being called by her first name. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Don't you have more important things to tend to other than gossiping about coworkers and being a blabbermouth? Honestly, you sound exhausting to be around. No jerks here. She's allowed to have her preference, and I suppose you should respect that, but at the same time, I find it a bit disrespectful on her part to insist on a more formal address for herself in a work environment where that is extremely far from the norm. It would be one thing if everyone used titles at your workplace and she wished to be called properly, referred to as doctor because she has a PhD, but you insisted on saying Miss or Mrs., but no one in your workplace uses these terms, so it's just weird. Not the jerk. This is why you always have to weed these people out during the hiring process. My husband is a hiring manager for a large company, so I get to see the ins and outs. He'll spend days going through years of a person's social media accounts. If he sees anything at all to give off the impression that they'll be problematic, he shreds their resume and puts them on a do not hire list. I can tell you firsthand that he'd shred about 99% of the resumes from people here on Reddit. You are all just about as loony as it gets. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the new employee? Please let us know.
I'd start calling her Harry.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.